a long intro.
It is a long intro.
And yet, Kitty Ann did not make it back.
No, it's okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to, I know we haven't heard these words in a while, Sprints and Shoptalk, where or the Discord, comes up with a set of questions, a theme of sorts, and questions for me to ask my co-hosts and everybody in the comments as well. If you thought, oh, hey, we're getting all 4 of the troublemakers today, apparently not. We have no idea where Devasia is, so pray for her, y'all. She might be showing up, she might not be. It's just part of the charm of it all. But before we get into the shop talk aspect of it, we always do, theoretically, a sprint first. But before any of that, Katie, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. Today's Belle's birthday, so everyone give her some Belle wishes.
Happy birthday, Belle.
Yep, she's 5. I have Bear over here with me because I was eating, so she's on the bed. Yep. Well, she's over on the bed, so that's the big day. Today's the big day. She's 5. She's 35, I guess.
Ooh. Middle-aged. Wait, is 35 middle-aged?
If you're 70, it is.
If you're what?
If you're 70, it's middle-aged.
Well, but I think middle-aged indicates middle of your life, right? I feel like
so
you could
I
say
17, 35 was your middle-aged.
Maybe. I don't know. But like, I'm 28 and 14 wasn't middle-aged for me.
It's only middle-aged if you die at 28.
Yeah.
So is it possible to figure out what your middle age is until you're past middle age?
But I think that's why they go off of the averages. I love how immediately we got off topic.
Woo! Veering immediately away.
The average lifespan of an American woman is 78.79 years.
Okay, so middle
I guess
age is
35,
roughly
I'd
like
count that as
39.
If you have like a 5% leeway on the middle-aged, I count 35 as middle-aged.
Wow.
You're going to go through a midlife crisis, Belle. She don't care.
I'm a little bit closer to middle age than I'm comfortable with, but that's okay.
We're not here to talk about that today. That is not the shop talk today.
Steve, how
I
are
think
you?
I am middle-aged, though. What's the lifespan of a man? 78.
Less.
Right. Okay, so yeah, I'm middle-aged.
Well, and no, 78, half of 78 is 39, isn't it? So you're
Well, I'm soon middle-aged, TM. I'm expecting.
You've got half a decade at least.
Yeah. Anyway,
as Miranda says. Anyway, Stieg, how are you doing today? Oops.
why am I first? I'm doing okay.
You were first. I asked Katie.
That's how we got to middle age. I said it's great. It's Belle's birthday.
It's Belle's birthday.
Oh, that's not how Catherine is. That's how Belle is. I want to know how you feel, Catherine.
He just wants the conversation not on him right now.
I'm fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Stieg, how are you?
I'm okay.
Love it. This is just going to be
riveting
such
content.
Great conversation. Okay, awesome.
How are you? How are you?
I'm fine. I finished my my edit of not This Book's for October, but The Hedge Witch yesterday. And I'm going to do some final flourishing touches on the whole thing. All of This Book is for October today. And hopefully, keep your fingers crossed, I'll get it off to the printer today or potentially tomorrow because I have to hear about some feedback on certain things. But yeah, so that's exciting. Yeah, let's say hi to our friends who are so kind to spend these next couple hours with us. Danny is here, Nikki is here, Laura is here, Crystal's here. Whoa.
Oh, you've changed your profile picture again.
Oh, yeah, because someone hacked and used my profile picture, so I literally just took that on the way home to work today. I just
nice.
You know how you get an option to just take a picture on the spot? I'm like, only psychopaths do that. Like,
wait, what do you mean you got hacked?
Some German porn site
stole his photo.
Stole my photo.
What were you doing on a German porn site, Steve? Be honest.
This was handed to me by Catherine, so the question is, what did Catherine do on a German porn site?
Katie!
I got a comment and I saw it, and I was like, that's and I was like, did C comment again on my video? Because he already commented on it. Clicked on the thing, and it was his picture. And I think it was your name. I can't remember. Maybe it was a different name. But it was like a German porn site person, like spam. Like, you know how we get porn spam?
Wait, but Steve, did you also like change your password and stuff like that to your YouTube account?
No.
Okay. Kelly, hi. Jess, hello. Everybody is here. It's so nice. Danny says, Sting alcohol has when you drink it. My apple cider feels like that. I'm very confused. Well, maybe don't drink it. I am here, Grayson, and also you are too. Hello. Marta is here. Violet is here. Pages and Paladins is here. Lauren Vaughn is here. Gays everywhere is here. So many amazing people.
The whole gang.
Courtney and Anna and Nikki. I think I already said hi to Nikki. Hi. And Cool Gamer. Woo! All right. Oh, are all of these references to people's projects? Because I'm obsessed with this intro. Oh, yes. Wouldn't you say, Katie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I pulled them directly from y'all's Pinterest. So I would hope so.
Oh, that's so funny because when I watched it, I was like, wow, Katie and I have the same brain because that's like the exact vibes for the Hedge Witch.
I mean, yeah, like that. I've read the Hedge Witch, so at least like I know. But yeah,
I know, but like I was just like, wow, I would have 100% picked that picture, and it seems I did. So that's
Cole was coming from inside the house, Wallace.
Yeah.
Kelly approves of the intro, so that's awesome. Laura,
I'm partial to the Glee one myself.
Sorry?
Mm-hmm.
I'm partial to the Glee one myself.
The Glee one? I don't even know if I know that one.
That's what you missed on. Glee.
Oh, was that the really fast one?
Yeah.
I really do like that one.
Got places to be.
That one is nice and subversive. Laura is excited for Sprints and Shop Talk. I'm very excited too.
Speaking of Sprints and Shop Talks, if you haven't checked out Laura's Shop Talk videos, amazing. Quality content, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Are those lives?
Yeah, she does live streams, and then it's uploaded to her channel, so you can rewatch at your convenience.
We have another member joining us today.
Wait, is Kelly telling us what Grape is doing right now?
Yeah, Grape told me this last night, so it's not computing.
Yep.
I love that Kelly.
You'll have to excuse her. She's a Pisces.
That's amazing. Okay, thank you for the update. All right, then. Everybody's saying happy birthday to Belle. I promise we are going to get into a sprint first, but I just want to say hello to everybody.
She appreciates it.
Aw, Katie, this comment is for you.
Thank you.
We put up a great vlog of the 3 of them with Devasia right here on a writing retreat together.
And you were also in it. You were just on a Discord call.
That's true. I am as you always see me, which is...
Is frozen for anyone else than me?
Oh, shit.
No, she's fine for me.
Oh, she's loading.
Oh.
Maybe
Hello?
because my internet is...
I think it's you. Wallace is fine for me.
That is like my biggest fear right now. I mean, other than, just growing old and dying and stuff, but like... I've been, one of the reasons that we haven't done a Sprints and Shop Talk in so long is because where I am, the internet is not entirely reliable, and the more people that are in the house, the less reliable it becomes. So I'm here during like a quieter part of the season, so I'm hoping the internet can handle it, but that is why for like the first time in 6 months, I have signed in to the Troublemaker StreamYard account, so that way if for some reason my internet goes out, they have control and they can end the stream. So, or they can continue the stream. It's up to you. All right. Yep. I'm sorry, guys. This is my constant state of being, and I just forget to not let it spill over sometimes.
Y'all, when it's Sprints and Shop Talk, you're gonna have to get the existential crisis too. Like that's just
the writing was on the wall, guys. Come on. It's been 2 years.
Read the room. Come
on. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for all the yays for finishing Tabifo. I'm very happy because I really do like, even if the printer takes a while, I'm fairly confident this book truly is for this October. Like it's happening, you guys. So
Like it's happening. It's here.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. It's gonna be great.
I don't know why,
Sorry.
but for some reason I Have a Dream started playing in my head by ABBA.
I don't know that song actually.
I have a dream, a book to write.
I feel like they could pull it off, but we'll see.
I mean, I could just hand the mic to Katie.
I can't handle that. I'm sorry. I know this is meant to be peaceful. I know that's meant to be peaceful, but now I have that visual in my head and I hate it. Okay. To Biffto. Yes.
To Biffto.
I do have a cover for it, and I'm gonna make a video about the cover.
Did you make a cover video already?
I made a cover video of me attempting to make covers, but then once I made that video and I just realized how awful I am at graphic design, I said, maybe I should pay somebody to do this for me. So that's what I ended up doing. And it was, yeah, I'm really happy with the cover. So I will.
Yeah, I was thinking graphic design was your passion.
You can be passionate about something, but not be good at it.
Me and writing. Hello. Who's there is me.
All right. Do you guys want to hop into the first sprint?
Do we have to? Sure, let's do it.
Yes, because I have to type up the questions on the banners and stuff. So,
okay. So it was a trick question. We were going to sprint.
Gaze, it's okay when I say it. It is not okay when you say it.
Gabe, who are you?
I'm just kidding. You're
Blink
welcome.
Twice if you need help.
I know, seriously. Although I will say, whenever I do this all the time because I think it's funny. But whenever I get this comment when I'm live streaming, all I hear is, "You are boring." You're boring, and I'd rather work than have to listen to you speak. It's all good. You can be good at something and not be passionate. Oh my God, yes, Malin. That's like the story of my college existence. I mean, truly, truly. I had to basically learn to be passionate about the thing that I am like semi-decent at, because otherwise I was just gonna feel like a failure in life. What topic are we covering? We're covering endings. That's why the title of this video is the end of Sprint and Shoptalk. But it's, yeah, that's your preview. We're talking about endings. Stieg, did you prepare? I sent a message to the group chat of things to prepare.
Why are you asking me if I prepared?
Well, because I was going to ask Katie too, but then last time when I started with Katie, oh wait, no, you do get mad about being first. Anyway, you were just the person I was looking at. Are you ready?
Yeah, I have my cliff notes.
Okay, cool. Katie, did you prepare?
I am. Didn't have to prepare very hard because I have very strong feelings about endings. So.
Okay, but wait, but did
Not
you prepare
literary
the
ending,
first thing I asked for? Because when I mentioned it to you last night, you're like, "Oh God, I have no idea." And then
let me just reference what you asked.
Well, while you do that, let's go into our little sprinty spoo. Ooh, wait, first, Malin plans on finishing her 0 draft next week on holiday. Go for it. And update the Discord once you do, because we want to celebrate you. Oh my gosh, wait, Grayson's planning on finishing their draft today, so that's an ending. Holy crap. Amazing.
Are you going to be doing it on your live stream, Grayson? So I will definitely be there, so.
It's okay, guys. I'm just teasing. Marta says, if I ever tell you to sprint, it's 120% more likely to be because I need to pee than because you're boring to me. Yeah, okay.
Just take us with you.
Now that's what I'm going to have in my head whenever Marta asks to sprint.
Just take us with you. Put us on your phone and take us with you when you go to the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. All right. Because of the weirdness that's happening with timers, etc., I am just gonna do a good old goop today because I do own the rights to that video. So
true.
Could you imagine if our channel got taken down because
honestly,
of all the crap, like the workout timers? Like we have used so many timers and like of various genres. So I'm just gonna. Here we go.
Just
what
a good old
my screen? It's been 2 months since I've done this, so I'm a little rusty. Here we go. No, not play on TV. Oh my god. Let's go back to 25. Is everybody ready? Too bad.
Aye, Captain.
Here we go. Enjoy. Yay! All right.
How lovely.
How did you do during that sprint?
I did what I did all the time, and that is just watch tennis. So.
Oh, right, because you're taking this week off from work.
How's that going, Catherine? Saw your story yesterday.
Yeah, but that's the only time I've worked on it. I only worked on it for like a couple hours, but otherwise I haven't done any work. And I haven't done any writing, drafting.
Okay.
Is that the narrative is spinning? I'll support you, Catherine.
It's the truth, so yeah, sure.
All right. Steve, how'd you do?
Did well. I was trying to get through today's word count, and I got distracted by some stuff. Oh wow, impressive.
Got distracted. Distracted by what?
Not important. Not important.
By your German porn site?
I was just about to say that. My thought was going there, but I'm glad you set up the joke. Or you paid off the joke, rather. So, circle jerking back.
Yeah.
I love this. Katie? A workaholic?
I know.
Everybody's doing great. Everybody's doing great with the word counts. Danny used that sprint to post to Insta about the concert yesterday, and now I'm fixing my timer playlist to be in order because for a while it didn't let me move them around. Interesting. Sam got home feeling rough because my migraine shot is wearing off, but I have a doctor's appointment today to get it renewed for the next year. Feel better.
Yeah.
Did I already look at this one? No. During that last sprint, I lost the wee amount of sanity I had woke up with because my children willed it. Also watched a review on Juniper and Thorn and question if I am past my trauma enough to read it.
Kelly, was the review from Reads with Rachel? Because I also watched that review today.
We also had a couple of people show up. Hi, Ava. Hi, Becca. So excited to have. Holy mackerel, there are 30 people here. I feel like that's a Spence and Shoptalk record. I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels.
That's a streaming record? No, probably
I
not.
don't know. But hopefully we can hold on to people's attention. We are going to be talking about, for that sprint, basically I put up banners for the questions and figured out the order in which I want to ask questions. Here's the thing, guys. We have a lot of questions to get through today. So, which by my count, technically there are 2, but each question has sub-questions. So technically there's, it's only, wait, really? Oh, it's only 4. It's only 4 questions. So that's fine. But each of the sub-questions has multiple parts.
Oh, awesome.
So there's a lot to get through today. And we're going to be talking about endings, and we're going to hit it at 2 different angles. So this first section, nope, that's the second section. This first section, we're going to be talking about a writer's relationship to endings. And I'm going to obviously take as much time as you want answering the actual questions, but we're going to get through this whole section and then go into another sprint and then do the next section. But this might take a while because there's a lot to get through, but I'm very curious to hear everybody's answers on all the questions. So we're going to first be talking about a writer's relationship to endings, and then we're going to be talking about the anatomy of an ending. So you can just kind of have that prepped in your brain as we move forward. So our first question 1.1, is, as a plotter or pantser, by what point in the writing process do you typically know how your story will end? And I just want to say right at the top of all of this that I'm going to be asking Katie first. Unless, Steve, would you like to go first?
Nope.
Didn't think so. I'm going to be asking Katie first, and then I'll go in and address the comments, and then we'll go to Stieg, and if there are more follow-up comments, we'll go to that, and then we're going to go into question 1.2, and then we'll do a sprint. That's so everybody, we have set everybody's expectations for how this is going to go. So feel free in the comments to also answer this question. And Katie, also, you feel free to answer this question, please.
I am not a plotter, but I am a pleatser, so I'm very much a discovery writer. But the one thing that I always have before I actually start drafting a book is I always know the ending. So I have to know what the end is, unless it's just fucking around with 72 words of vibes.
Because I was gonna say, because I was like, I distinctly remember one of the main points of panic over Cruel Summer being was that you weren't sure how it was going to end, and you were like 30,000 words into it at that point. I was like,
yeah,
we've committed.
Yeah, well, that's usually, I will say typically, with how I like to write my actual books, like books that are book shaped, as I like to call them. I like to know the ending because I started, when the first book I ever finished was The Wrath King, which ended up being 155,000 words in the first draft, because I didn't know how it was going to end until I was already like 75,000 words into the novel. So by that point, it just helps me more gauge how long the story is going to be, and I have a target point that I'm trying to hit towards.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No. You're the interviewee. You stay away.
So yeah, I just like knowing where I'm going to be hitting towards as I write books now, as I've moved my process, because it doesn't stop me from overwriting, but it does give me a target, so I hopefully don't write another 155,000 word book.
Okay, wait, hold on. Remind me that I had we're putting a pin in the Wrath King conversation, that I had a question about that. But in terms of that, of like, you have made intentional efforts to like have your ending by a certain point in the process. Do you find, you've just said it doesn't prevent you from overwriting, but do you find then that your initial drafts have a better grasp of your themes because you've identified your ending and you can like build towards it? Or do you feel like the first draft is still pretty all over the place as you're trying to identify those themes?
I think in terms of theme, it might be a little all over the place, but I do think in terms of like arc, of like character arc, plot arc, it's a lot more defined and a lot easier to then go in and revise. I mean, I guess that'd be more of a question, or more of a thing for you to answer as someone who's read all of my books. Whether you think I have my themes in the drafts that you have read.
But you are the educated girly, the girly who's like, I know what a theme is. I'm just here like, doo-doo-doo, so I don't know.
So you just reading a book?
What, Steve? Sorry?
Not the circus music.
Okay. And then back to the pinned question. So you say that you didn't figure out the ending to the Wrath King until quite far into it. But the Wrath King isn't the whole story. It's this duology you had in mind, right? It was a duology.
Yes.
Right?
It is a duology.
Did you know how that was going to end by that point? And so really when you didn't know how the Wrath King was ending, it was really you just didn't know your midpoint.
I still don't quite know what the ending of the Wrath King is as a duology.
Of the second book.
Yeah, I have an ending in terms of like, I know what like theoretically needs to happen in order to create a satisfying ending. We'll get into that in the anatomy of an ending. So like I know the vibes generally, and like I know like that the arc has to end in a certain way. How that happens is anyone's guess. And I guess we won't find out for another 15 years. So who knows?
I'm very excited for that day when we do. Thank you.
You'll be the first to know.
Here's hoping. Oh no. Oh my God, the computer just froze for a second. Anyway, we're fine. All right. I'm trying to find where the comments regarding this question begin. We've got something like this. Miranda says, depends on the ending definition, like climax or denouement, final image. Babe, the question is yours to interpret. Interpret it as you will. Sam says, the endings tend to be one of my fave parts, so I have at least a rough idea about how I want a story to end and adjust it as I plot the rest of it. I actually wrote all that glitters for its ending. I like that. Yeah, sometimes, you know, when we talk about the construction of a story itself, they're the things that stand out to you of, oh, this character in this sort of world, that's interesting to me, let's write a story about it. But sometimes it's this resolution is the hook that gets us into wanting to write the ending. Grayson says, as a plotter who only outlines specifics a few chapters at a time, I actually don't often know the ending until I'm close to it. So then I would kind of to you, Grayson, give a similar question to what I was asking Katie about themes, and that when you wait that long to get to your ending, how does that guide you in terms of like wrapping up the emotional things that you've built? How do you feel like that serves or hinders your process? Do you typically feel rushed when you get a first draft of your ending? Do you typically feel like you've got more plot holes than you can handle? Or do you think that that is the most organic way for you to actually reach the real satisfying ending of the story, is when you kind of let it tell itself? So let me know. Let us know. Kelly claims to be a planter, and the end is in the brain dump portion of the notes. Like it. Of the notes before you even start drafting? Is that what you mean? Or is that what that means to you? Anna says, the way I wish so hard to be one of those people that always knows the end. Nina says, as a planter, I typically know the end the moment the idea pops in my head. The idea for the story? But it can change. My Vienna fantasy story is currently on the third ending. It's very similar, but not the same. Oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm trying to think if I've ever had something like that happen where I have a story and then I have the ending and then it changes. I feel like I'm one of those people where once I have the ending, that's the ending, and I'm like committed to that. How about you, Stink?
I always know the ending when I get an idea. It's always like concept first, and then I'm like, and this is how it ends, and then I can start like brain dumping.
And do you ever find that as you write the story, the ending shifts for you at all? I mean, other than like minor details, but like, have you ever
never written an ending in my life, so I wouldn't know.
But
you
the
wrote
ending
Cairo.
can still.
Oh yeah,
you did write
that
Cairo.
doesn't count. That was like, that's a text message. It's fine.
No, it's
Don't
not.
diminish your own efforts. That is not true.
I knew the ending for that, but it just changed locations. But the ending is the same.
Okay.
It's just the poshery around it is different.
Gotcha.
The bells and whistles.
Yeah. Danny says, I'm a plotter, and the ending is usually one of the first things I know, though it's almost always the big climactic ending and not the wrap-up scenes. Those I figure out last. Yeah, I find I'm not educated enough to speak on this. Katie, you speak on this. In terms of like story structure, climax versus denouement, and what would you consider the true ending of a story? Like,
it's probably the final climactic moment. Like, for example, the ending of Lord of the Rings, like the climax of Lord of the Rings is, spoiler alert for Lord of the Rings, although it's been out for over 20 years, so feel like it's safe ground, is them finally getting the ring into Mount Doom and like defeating Sauron, and like all of the culmination of everything we've been waiting for coming together. Whereas like, I guess, and then you have the fallout, which is like, Frodo going to the Undying Lands, Sam marrying Rosie, Aragorn becoming king. Like, that's like the result of this ending happening. So like, it's all like part of the ending, but like that's the climactic moment that you've been waiting for the story. And I feel like both aspects of the ending, again getting into anatomy by accident, really just like both has to be satisfying in different ways, I think, depending on what kind of story you're writing. So the wrap-up scene, I feel like, comes more like with character ending, whereas like the climax is like a plot ending.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting distinction, where like everything that happens within the denouement is to bring closure to character stories, not the story itself. That's interesting. Marta says, my current book has changed endings 3 times, so I guess I know what the ending will be at some point between drafts 2 and 3. That's good. Sometimes the ending is the only thing I know. Sometimes it's the only thing I don't know. I have no typical... Did she continue this? No. So.
I think there's no
typical. She's saying she has no typical because the question has typically in it. As a plotter, I need to know where the story is supposed to go very early on in the process, even before I start outlining. That seems to be, it kind of feels split to me. We've got some people, and I guess it's split along plotter pantser lines, right? Of But I'm very interested in pantsers specifically at what point the ending clicks for them. Which I guess then, hold on, we'll do Nikki's comment and then we'll go to you, Stig. I think I generally have an idea of the vibes of the ending, but maybe not the exact ending until I've actually written it. Gotcha. So Stig, you're both a plotter, but you are currently pantsing a story.
Yep.
Talk about your ending experience between the two.
As I said,
Right.
I always know the ending when I get the ID. So I don't think plotting or pantsing has anything to do with knowing the ending or not.
I think it can. I mean,
I'm not saying it can, but I'm not saying
for you.
For me. So yeah, I know the ending, and then, as I've said, I've never written like a novel-length ending before, so I don't know if I might change down the road. But I feel like I have pretty I need to know where it ends before I start writing it, basically.
And how long do you spend on that aspect of it? I mean, do you sit and think, oh, it could end this way, or it could end this way, or does an idea pop into your head and you think, oh, it could end this way, and then you kind of like sit and analyze it and think if that's the best and you tweak it, or is it just, does it arrive fully formed? How did your ending for your current whip come?
I just knew the final image, and then the final image has elements in it that kind of dictates the ending of the climax. So
you kind of like reverse engineered it from that.
Yeah, basically, I was like, "Ooh, okay, I have this perfect ending. So, how do I get to this? Well, final image, really. How do I get to this epilogue? And then, okay, for the epilogue to make sense, this needs to happen in the final chapter of the book, or like in the climax, rather. So that's just that's how I engineered it. Was once revealed to me in a dream.
How much time do you think you spent doing that engineering?
From Project Sunflower, literally 0 seconds, because I just started January 1st when I wasn't intending to. So I was like, oh, okay. But for Project Atlas, which was my previous whip that I didn't complete, I probably spent for the entire story, I spent 2 years just outlining, and including the ending. The ending never changed for that either.
And you had that ending right at the start as well.
Yeah, that also okay, this is the final image of this novel, because it's setting up the book number 2 of the series. So they haven't changed yet. But as I said, I haven't written an ending, so maybe the process is different in editing. But I feel like I have a pretty strong.
To me, I kind of especially for this question, it doesn't matter to me whether or not you've written an ending, because if you have the story in your head, the story has been told. It's been told to you. You've told it to yourself, right? So I don't think you not having written the ending to a novel specifically, because you have written endings, but I don't think that precludes you from being able to give insight into this question,
Okay. But yeah, I just know the endings up front.
Okay. All right. Then let's see. We did Nikki's question. Elena or Z says, as a planter, I usually want to know my beginning, midpoint, and ending before I start writing. I feel like that's very solid. Crystal says, it depends from story to story. I knew the ending for Project Incarnate when it was one book right away, but then I split it and now it's just a general place I want all the threads to lead. Kelly says, you can't wait 15 years.
Too bad, Kelly. Sorry.
Don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. She's got 10 books she has to write before she can write that one, or finish that one. She's written that one. When I outline, I usually go through about half the story before I fully have a concrete idea on how I want the ending to look / feel. I need to make it thematically relevant, as by the halfway point, I know the prevalent themes in the story I'm writing. Also, endings usually come to me when I listen to the most random songs. Ooh, I love that. I love that. How the ending comes. That's interesting. Paris says, as a plotter, I need to know the ending before starting. I'm writing a dual timeline. Oh, yeah, you got to know the ending when you're doing that. First edition retrospective novel, and there's 2 endings, the ending in the past and the ending in the present. Oh, wow, I didn't even think about that. A story with multiple endings. That's...
Choose your own adventure.
Florian Font says, it's different with every piece. I write a lot of poetry, and with that, I can usually feel the ending coming taking an approach of vague ending ideas takes pressure off the writing for me. Paris says, I know the past ending because this impacts the present timeline. That makes sense. The past character arcs of all characters need to evolve in the present timeline as it's 10 years from the original events. But I don't know how the present timeline will end yet, so I'm writing the past chapters first, which is the heaviest weighting in the book, before writing the present in chronological order. From a thematic standpoint, Katie or Stieg, how would you approach something like this, where you know the ending of something, of a crucial part of the story that happened 10 years before, but you're not sure how the present timeline would end? What factors would you take into account when trying to figure out an ending for this kind of story?
I think for me, how I would approach it is where the characters are at the end of the past timeline is theoretically where they start at the present timeline. So like, I'm assuming with Paris, like the past timeline of events isn't fully fulfilled, and that's why you have to have another present timeline of like fulfilling these character arcs. I don't know what kind of story you're telling, whether it's like a thriller or a literary fiction novel, because that was another thing I wanted to say. I thought of while we were talking is genre expectations oftentimes will dictate what kind of ending you have. So if it's like a murder mystery or like a thriller, you have a specific set of conventions that you're trying to get to. Whereas like if this is a romance, like the ending of the past will end in probably them breaking up, and then 10 years later you have them theoretically getting back together in a happily ever after at the end. So usually what I see with the split kind of timeline books is where you end in the past oftentimes has to be unsatisfying in order for there to make sense that there's a present timeline that then you're trying to end in the present. So it has to be something unfulfilled in the past timeline that you then fulfill in the present timeline. That's what I would focus on. What is being unfulfilled here so I can fulfill it later. Bear, do you have something to add? He has many thoughts on the timeline and endings, clearly. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Stink.
I don't know. I'm having the opposite problem. So if you ever figure it out, Paris, call me.
Wait, can you explain the opposite problem?
Because I know the present timeline, I know how that ends, but there's also past timeline that I'm not writing, but it's very relevant to the current timeline. So it's like behind the scenes timeline that I don't know how it ends. So I'm having the worst problem of Paris.
Well, then maybe, extrapolate from Katie's answer of consider your current ending and what that resolves, and then consider how the past ending could create the issue that then needs to be resolved. I mean, I'm sure that's what you're doing, but...
that is what I'm doing. That is what I've done. But I just don't know the ending, because there's like basically the climax of the past timeline is what's relevant to the current timeline. But I don't know the ending, like the final image, if you will, of the character arcs for the previous timeline. That was very, very convoluted, but it makes sense.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So like, how have you... what is your strategy for figuring that out? Are you just writing and hoping the inspiration hits you? Do you sit down with it and consider? Walk us through your process.
There is no process. I'm just writing, and then whatever is revealed to me is revealed to me, and whatever is not revealed to me, I will have to, because I'm going to reverse engineer the story when I'm done with this draft. So that's when I have to hunker down and kind of figure out all the nitty gritty. What's it called? Nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
So I have since I have the vibe of the past timeline, I know how it affects the present timeline, but currently it feels like very unrelated to this conversation, but I'm writing a series of events as opposed to a story, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Kind of like a history book rather than a narrative.
Not even a history book. It's just like, do you ever, how The Hobbit just feels very episodic in his narrative because it was. That's kind of what this book feels like.
Okay.
It's just like, oh, part 1 is this thing, and then part 2 is this thing, and then part 3 is this thing, and then there's a veil of relevance somewhere in the ether to these parts, but damn me if I can find it.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Also, really quickly, bye, Nikki.
Oh, bye, Nikki.
Bye, Nikki.
When you're writing, Stieg, in your story, because this is something that you're planning on resolving in the next draft, do you like leave yourself comments within your current draft of like, ooh, factor this, into
Yes,
like
I
take this.
use
Yeah.
heavily abuse and use the inspectors thing on the side of
Mm-hmm.
Scrivener.
Mm-hmm.
So, and literally I just like edits in all caps at the top of it. And then whenever I write, I'm like, ooh, I need to figure out this in the next. I'm just like, figure out why Dr. Evil is evil. So it's going to be a lot of work reverse engineering. And honestly, I'm not sure if I will ever do it, but at least the notes is there if I ever decide to.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought your favorite part of the whole process was editing.
Yeah, it is, but I also I'm not sure if I'm equipped to tell this story at this current moment in my writing journey, just because. What?
I just love that we are all literally having that exact same issue. That's how I feel about Halai Rising. That's how Katie feels about Invisible String. And that's how you feel about Project Sunflower. It's just like the kinship.
Maybe that's what today's topic should have been.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my emotional struggle this time, and that makes it really hard to actually sit down and write the story too, because I'm like, I'm a speck of dust in the ether of existence. This does not matter. Like, why am I doing this? I could be having fun, not writing. That's what I could have done. Insert clown emoji.
What about the story feels out of the ballpark for you?
I'm just like everything. Basically, like the prose, the narrative, the story, the plot twists.
Is it like the genre of high fantasy? Is it the political intrigue? Is it something that you could you make a list? Not me being like, do exactly what I did, where you make a list of everything within the story, all the internal issues. Literally, I'm so sorry for anybody who's been watching my videos and you've heard this spiel a million times, but I made 2 lists, one of internal issues and one of external issues, and I wrote everything down. And just the act of doing that was very helpful because it kind of put onto paper something that felt very amorphous, blob-like in my head of like, wow, this is overwhelming. It is unconquerable because there's so much. But then you write it all down and eventually get to a place where you're like, is there anything else? Is there anything else? And there might be like 1 or 2 more things, but for the most part, you've written down the big ones and you look at it and it's like, okay, wait, this is manageable. So for Halai Rising, I was like, oh my gosh, this deals with moral philosophies on topics that I don't know what the moral consensus on it is, and I don't know what the history of artificial intelligence in the United States development is, and and you write all that down. But those are all solvable issues. Those are all things that I can research and look into. And if it's an issue on genre, you can do research on genre expectations. If it's the emotional character arcs that you want to go through, but you're like, oh, I haven't experienced this kind of emotion. How am I supposed to write about it? That's something that you can research. Is it I don't know if that would be a helpful exercise for you, but I found it very helpful for me.
I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where you kind of just, to become a better writer, you have to write, but also I'm shit at writing, so I don't want to write. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. But I think
I think that's the loop I'm currently stuck in.
But I also think that writing is more than just writing. Or no, improving your craft is more than just writing. This is also true. Thank you, Katie.
But I know it's not imposter syndrome because I don't think I'm delusional about my abilities as a writer, which I know is inherently the essence of imposter syndrome. But I don't think I'm having imposter syndrome just because I know that, that is not imposter syndrome. That is just honest issues that can only be solved through, reading more and writing more. That's kind of what I've been trying to do. But then I've also given myself a deadline. So I'm like, every ounce of time I'm spending not writing feels like a waste, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I also think the difference between imposter syndrome and acknowledgement in this case is also that it's not that you're saying I can never write this because I will never be good enough. It's a I can't write this right now. I need to work on other things to get me to that point. It's you can't run before you can walk.
But I would also stress that you can't run away either, because there is sometimes you just have to put a story away for your own like mental health and stuff. But sometimes you put it away because you feel overwhelmed by it, and then you don't go through the steps that you need to go through in order to actually return to it, even though it's a story that deserves to be told. You know, so there are active steps you can take to educate yourself, to gain the knowledge you think you need in order to write the story. So
yeah, and it's like, because I already shelved my last project because I felt overwhelmed by it. So like, I can't just keep writing half-baked novels and then shelving it because I feel unequipped. Like,
but did you also shelve Project Atlas because you lost your passion and interest in it as well? Like, you had already told the story through outlining, that you were like,
I mean, yes, that's part of it, but I also outlined this to like some extent. I think it's just
not nearly as much as Project Atlas, though.
That is fair. But my teacher in nursing school once said that you can have like 10 years experience, or you can have the same annual experience 10 times. So it accumulates to 10 years. So like, does that make sense? How do I, like, if you work for 1 year, you have a certain amount of experience, and then you just don't reflect. So you just do the same thing for the next 9 years.
Oh.
So you have the same experience 10 times instead of 10 years of experience.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to just power through and kind of just be like, not shelve it, because I am enjoying the story, even if I'm not enjoying writing it. That makes no sense. But like, I'm still passionate about this and I'm going to see it through. But I'm just at a point where I'm like, I can't keep half finishing stuff and then shelve it and then start the next project and do that halfway done and then shelve it, because that's, that's not how you improve. And
yeah, no, sometimes you just have to get to the end, even if it sucks. There is like, I think you unlock something once you do that.
100%.
Once you just commit and you're right, you get all the way through and you get to the end, and there is something that gets unlocked internally there. And I wish I could put words to it. And I don't know, I'd love to know if other people have had that experience in the comments of like,
I think it's just like, once you've written a book, you can do it, and that kind of, that you carry that with you forever, unless you get early onset dementia.
Yeah.
So
we'll kind of touch again on this.
Yeah, that's not relevant to the question at all.
Oh my God, Steve, I'm so thrilled by everything that you just said. I felt like that was so interesting, and it was good to know, kind of touch base with you on where you are in your journey right now.
This is also, I think, a good point. We have piles of unfinished stories when we first start writing. I also, I agree with that as well.
All right, where the hell was I? I'd almost caught up too, but I don't care. That was so worth it.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay, sorry if I skipped anybody's comments. I think this is where I was. Miranda says, I usually have the climax, but not the way the final image is going to play out. I almost always totally rewrite my endings. Okay, I see. I think that is also really interesting too, from Miranda's point of view, because I feel like that's pretty unique from the sample size we've taken. Grayson says, my first ending feels like garbage. The real one comes out later in later drafts. When I know how to make it better, it definitely feels more satisfying with each draft. Alan says, I'm a planter, so I have to know the general direction of the book, but not the specific ending. Then when I reach Act 3, I start plotting a bit more that line of the ending. Were you indicating that is you too, Steve?
That is me, yeah. I think I'm a planter, because I'm not a plotter, but pantsing, fuck that shit. So planting is where it's at. But maybe like, I guess, plotting and pantsing is like a spectrum. So I think I'm more towards the plotter's side, but still in the planter district.
Yeah. Sam says the ending of a plot is the climax. The ending of a story is the wrap up of the character's journey. That is brilliant. That is, you're so smart, Sam. Mom, you're so smart. Danny says, that's a very good distinction, Katie, and exactly what I meant. I always know the plot ending going into things, but not the character endings. Kelly says, it's nice to have a destination in mind before embarking on whatever journey the writing is going to take me on. Example, shiny new idea. I have a romance I need. A fast and loose synopsis as a roadmap, per se. Okay. Some deep mystery. I'm a pantser trying to be a bit more planter, and I usually try to figure out the ending before I decide to write it. I feel like that must work. But I've written quite a few shorter stories without knowing the ending ahead. How has that worked out for you? Do you feel like that ever messes you up, or do you feel like you create better endings that way? Becca says, I usually figure out my ending when I'm outlining, but hold on. I'm sorry. I just realized I'm so far behind in the comments. I'm 20 minutes behind.
Okay.
Written entire books, sent them to the editor, had a dream of a better ending, call editor, rewrite ending. So every book is different. I love that. And I love
Such a
that.
part
Like,
of Becca.
it is
Yeah.
such a That's amazing. Marta says, I want to add that changing the ending felt like a massive deal when I took that decision, especially between drafts 2 and 3, where it was a more significant change. I felt like I was effectively saying goodbye to the story and moving on to a new one, even if it was the same world and characters. I feel that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I've been
legitimate. Goop morning, friends. What's the question? Oh, yeah, sorry. It's this. I'm assuming you saw that one. Did y'all see the fun thing where I think a Reddit thread proposed the idea that an author wrote a handful of different endings and you didn't know which one you got when you bought the book, and chaos ensues in the fandom? Cool idea, honestly. I think I remember seeing that on Tumblr, and it was like they say they released 6 endings, but they're like only 5, and each is of a different rarity level or something like that. But I don't know if that would actually end up working, because that is, oh my god, we're never doing another sprint. This is another interesting sub question. Actually, is it? I feel like the answer is just no. I was gonna say, do we think that every story has its like one true ending, and that like that's the ending that is correct for that story? Because you know how authors sometimes can be like, oh, it was like the story existed outside and I was just the conduit who, like, you know, typed the words. Do we feel like a story like that where the author wrote 5 different endings? Do we think that's truly doable? Because we have to put a pin in that, because that's for question 2 of talking about the anatomy of an ending. I feel like we get into that. So put a pin in it and let's see if we remember to take it out. Paris gave us some explanation about her story. Mine is an adult lit fic, but the weighting is approximately 75% in the past, 25% in the present.
25% peasant.
That's.com.
As a planter, even if I have it outlined, usually the true ending appears in my brain while writing the climax. Fair enough. Anna says, I'm writing fantasy romance, and I'm nervous that my ending bucks genre expectation too much. I want my character slow burn to go across 3 books, so 1 book does not end with them together. I cannot tell you what. Sorry, Steve.
That is not a romance.
Anna, I'm so here for this. As someone who like desperately loves pining and the like build up to stuff, nothing makes me more sad when in a series the main romantic couple gets together in the first book, or like in a TV show where the main romantic couple gets together in the first season. I feel like no, it's a season 3, end of season 3 is a sweet spot. Follow The Office, Jim and Pam. Spoiler alerts for The Office. Jim and Pam, last episode of season 3, and you don't even realize that you don't get confirmation that they are an item until the beginning of season 4. Like that to me is a sweet spot, because we have their first season where they develop their feelings for each other, and then usually there's like one person who falls harder than the other, like there's some block, and then there's a switch in the second season of that, and the tables are reversed, and then the third season is everything effed up all around, and then finally they come together. Oh my god, yes. So I'm so here for this, Anna. 100%. Write it for me and me alone. Danny says, Nikki leaving when we're discussing editing indie multiple timelines is so funny, considering their project is like 5. Paris says, past is when the main character is 16 and present is when she's 26, so it's also confronting who we are as teenagers versus who we want to be versus who we end up being. I love that. It's an adult lit fic coming of age. That is so interesting. I don't know what this means.
Not feeling good enough to write it.
Oh, okay. Wow, it seems everybody shares this. Dave, there's a reason you're pushing yourself to finish it. Oh, that's a great question. Oh, we've kind of discussed it.
Yeah,
but
I said I don't want to shelve another book, so I want to actually make it through and improve. And, Mercury, yeah.
Mercury, yep, it's Mercury.
What bitch.
Marta says, rather than write something fun like a certain meta story a little birdie told me about.
But that is exactly how Project Atlas came to an end, because it was like, but what if I wrote Prince Caspian instead? So now
Yeah.
like, what if I wrote Cowboy Make Monster Hunter stories instead? But what if I wrote my, music romance instead?
Yeah.
So
That's the one I'm still pulling for. I'm still pulling for it.
maybe I'll have my own
Nice.
little cool summer in the
That's what I'm
sun.
saying. Everybody needs their cool summer.
Kelly says, I think I write the story in series how it comes to wait, what? I'm sorry, I just glitched out. I think write she's saying, I think write the story in series how it comes to you for sure. And your agent or editor can go over any concerns for reader expectations in the future. I think maybe she's talking to Anna.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I love writing short stories to improve my writing since I can focus in on very small topics / issues without having to deal with an entire novel. I honestly think that's also excellent advice and excellent practice of kind of really getting down pat your approach to story structure and development through a format that is more manageable and then expanding. I think but manageable, but in a different way, because I feel like it's also less manageable because you don't have time, and so you really have to commit to things. So there's I'm not trying to say short stories are not as involved as novels. Sorry. Sam says, I think Steek is just at the point of strengthening his skill where he's self-aware of his skill level, and it can be disheartening at times, especially if you have friends who have been at it longer. But I think, though, to be at that level of that self-awareness is a very important part of the whole process. Kelly says, sometimes it's nice to shelf something and circle back. Fun story. I wrote 4 other stories to then return to Thimbleton to sometimes it works, but other times just push through the ending. Yeah. Sam says, to be fair, that actually is how a lot of new writers improve. I have like piles of old unfinished stories from when I first started writing. I think we discussed that already. Right? This is also a good point. Mullen says, when I finished my 0 draft, I didn't like it anymore and didn't want to edit it, but I was so happy I'd finished a whole book for the first time. Yeah. Yep. It was.
But I'm gonna need you to return to it, Marlon, because I want to read it.
I want to read everybody's everything. I have finished stuff and shelve it too much. I'm definitely working on not doing that. Not much success yet. I finished a draft and thought, now I know I can do it, but I still doubt myself every single time. Michael arrived. Hi, Michael. Miranda says, I'm a non-committal plotter. I want to have an ending just in case, but I'm not married to it. I love that. Mom.
There we go again.
There we go again. Sam says, so the idea that Reddit their prose is kind of how visual novels work. Oh, there's stories with multiple endings depending on which path you select, and some endings are harder to unlock. That's actually really cool. Yeah, I do get you. I do. Hold on. Our tip jar poll this week was Jim versus Pam versus Ross and Rachel. This is so obvious, the correct answer to me, but whatever. Mullen thinks the slow burn romance, I think K-dramas do it best. I'm all for long-term pining rather than date one kiss. Me too. I swear we're going to get to question 1.2 very soon. Danny says, not knowing the ending, one romance, so I do know at least they get together, but I've had struggles and... Oh, wait, this isn't Danny. Sorry. This is some deep mystery. Struggles and success as well as lightning strike inspiration. That last one is what makes a bit addictive. Yep, people are agreeing with me. It's about the build-up. Yes.
I disagree.
What? When there's no
build-up, but I also like to just see a couple develop. I recently read a novel which the couple didn't get together like before the maybe last 10 pages.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, so I spent 400 pages reading about you baking fucking bread, and now you're gonna give me nothing.
Yeah. Wow, I feel like you're calling out to Biffo very specifically.
Oh, no, I was calling out a comic called Bloom.
Bloom.
Yeah, it's about like a boy in a Greek bakery and like a new assistant, and they just flirt for 400 pages, and then they get together for 10 minutes, and there's like, and fin.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to see the payoff too. I love a good setup, but I also need payoff. And the payoff for me is not them getting together. I want to see like the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, basically.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So, but then that's less about the anticipation and more about just where the people are choosing to end their stories. Because I feel like without the build up, without the anticipation, these people get together and you're like, oh, but I'm not into it. Like, why do we like each other? Why do we think they're gonna last? You know? Okay.
We were talking about this yesterday. This is back to fighting. Yesterday, last night, 10 hours ago.
This morning.
Yes. Is that I like emotional pining, but I do like fake dating. You know, like characters get to be like physically like affectionate with each other, but it's like they don't actually like me, but I still like them because I'm emotionally pining for them. You know, but like this doesn't matter. That's my favorite trope because you get both, best of both. You get the physicality and the intimacy of that, but then you also have like the pining aspect of it, and you're not just staring longingly across the room, which I do love staring longingly across the room. But that's why I think fake dating is one of my favorite tropes personally, because you get, or forced proximity or anything like that.
Can I add to my answer?
Yeah.
Of course.
That's one of the things, because I also agree with this. I like a bit of both, I think, because one of my favorite things about Bridgerton season 1 was the fake dating setup. And then once it paid off, I was like, I don't mean to be a bitch, but you guys are kind of boring.
Yeah, yep.
So, yeah, I like them both, but I guess, I don't know.
Yeah. I just have to highlight this. Ross and Rachel is a horrible toxic relationship. That is so accurate. Okay. Anyway, not that I've seen like 10% of Friends, so I shouldn't even make the call on it. But the 10% I've seen did not reflect them in a good light. All right, here we go. We're going to do question 1.2. This is hilarious, guys. I really thought this question was going to be the quick little intro question.
Talked about it for an hour.
Here we go. For our second part of a writer's relationship to endings. Oh, I'm going to edit the question really quickly.
Oh, okay.
Well, because sometimes I ask very leading questions, and where it's like as if I expect I know how people are going to answer it, and I've been trying to recognize that and not write them that way. So we're going to ask it like this. Does the pressure to write the end affect your ability to work? And if so, how? Katya, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Yep. I went through this when I was working on Cruel Summer, because there was a lot of things going on when I was writing the end of the original draft of Cruel Summer, the first draft, if you will. Mm-hmm. A lot more things going on when I was writing the end than just this. But specifically, the idea that I was originally never going to come back to this version of the story, because I rewrote it now and it's a lot different. And I felt that writing the end of that story was a lot more like having an open door. Whereas when I wrote the first draft of the original story, it was very much like, I am closing the door on this. I'm not going to return. So it was very difficult to like let go. I think someone talked about that a little bit earlier. I forget who. I'm sorry.
Marta, I think.
Yes, Marta, about how, writing the ending does feel like the end, and like you're never going to come back to it, and that can be really scary. So I was putting it off and writing extra things that I didn't need to write, and ultimately was very emotionally distraught at ending the story, until I decided to write a sequel. So that's the solution.
You just never end it. Just never end.
End. That's why I love writing series. You just never end.
Why do you think that happens? Is it because you just become connected to the characters? Is it because you feel like there's something else there, of like something that went unexplored that you should have explored earlier? What do you think causes that?
I think for me it is I don't want to leave the characters yet in the situation, and I'm having so much, like, it depends on the story, but specifically for Cruel Summer, I was having a lot of fun having the experience of writing it.
Right.
And like, it was no pressure on me. I was getting a lot of external validation for it. It was, quite easy to write in terms of like, I wasn't struggling with it in the way that I'd struggled with other books, you know, because a lot of times, you know, I'm just desperate to get the story over with because I'm just so sick of looking at it, because I'm not having a good time because I'm thinking about it being a book and like having to revise it. Whereas when I wrote the first original draft of it, it was very much just I'm writing this for fun. Right. And enjoying the moments of it. And, you know, that was going to be the end of me writing the story that was entirely, you know, that was not a struggle for me. So I think writing the end was very much difficult because I knew I was going to have to go into something else that was a lot harder and a lot more challenging, which has been fun, but it's a lot different. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have another pin for you, but I want to do these questions or these answers first. Because I think a lot of the people are saying something that's similar to me, which is, if anything, it's actually motivating. Sam was saying I was about to say not at all, but actually it tends to energize me. I really love finishing a story and then shoving it at people to read. So it excites me and gives me great satisfaction. Danny says, all my characters live in my head and I think about them 24/7 until I finish their stories. So writing the end is a bit of relief so I can think about other characters for a bit. That I think is totally fascinating. I don't think I've ever been so consumed by a story like that before, even when I'm in the throes of it. But so, yeah, I think that's really interesting.
I give this to Danny, so you have my support.
Malin says, oh, wait, no, that's not. I thought I skipped Malin's comment. Oh, here we go. It says that she's delayed writing the end for a whole week and played Disney Dreamlight Valley instead. Oops. Why do you think that is, Malin? What's going on there? Why do you
Welcome to therapy.
Why do you think you have delayed? Yeah, what's going on with the story? And this kind of comes back to just, this is going to sound like a leading question, but it's more of just a genuinely, I'm curious, Katie, based off of some of our conversations. For Cruel Summer and like getting to the ending, was there, once you were like out of the fun stage of it, never mind. Have you ever struggled to write an ending before because of the fear that you don't have another story in you?
Ooh, that's interesting. Sort of.
Okay.
I have come across that feeling, not when I was writing the ending, but when I sent The Wrath King out for queries, that if it failed, I would never write another story that was good enough to query and publish. So it didn't come when I was actually physically writing the end of The Wrath King, but it came when I was faced with the idea that this book was not going to succeed in the long term.
Gotcha.
So.
Crystal says, I'm just an underwriter, so I always rush to the ending I see in my head, regret it, then go back and flesh things out. Fair enough. Pear says, I revise each chapter as I go and then revise all elements of each act before moving on to the next. So I have a strong foundation before moving forward and finishing. So no, that's interesting. Nina says, the pressure is coming from me and eventually it ends up making me hate writing and the story, and I abandon it because the pressure becomes too much and I'm scared to mess it up. That I do understand. I would say, though, that is me in like the first act. If that's going to happen to me in a story, it's going to happen in the first act. And typically by the time I get through, especially once I'm at the back half of the second act, the ending, the finish line is in such sight that I just get through it, even if I know I'm not going to do it right on the first pass. But the back half of the first act is really treacherous territory for me in terms of like confidence level and my ability to tell a story. Steve.
Yes.
Okay. How?
One of the reasons I didn't want to finish Project Atlas was because it was a series. So I knew that even though I got to the end of the book, I didn't get to do like at the end. So that very much led me to kind of be like, I don't think I can commit to a 3-story thing. So I was like, in addition to everything else, I was just like, shelve it, and then I'll start a standalone. And even though I'm committed to this current standalone I'm writing, I'm still like, oh, but it's a high fantasy. It's going to be like 150K. The end is nowhere in sight. So,
was that me or did Stig freeze? I have no idea because Katie's not here.
I don't know. Was it you?
It might have been me. But yeah, I heard basically up until you were talking about, I think I heard most of it, the shelving of Project Atlas because it was a 3-book series.
Yeah, so the ability to see the end in sight makes me want to write.
Oh, okay. Basically. Do you see the end in sight yet for Project Sunflower?
Oh, no, I hate Act 2s. Do we need Act 2s? Can we cut them? Is it too late for cancel culture?
I mean, I think there are a lot of musicals that are in 2 acts, so
maybe I should write a musical instead. Just a
well,
high
no, I'm
fantasy.
just saying, I feel like, we don't have to be married to the 3-act structure. You could write a 2-act story if you want.
No, but I don't think I have the writing chops to do anything else but the 3-act structure for now. So maybe in the future I can play around with structure, but for a first-time novel, I absolutely do believe that having a guideline can be helpful.
Well, but there are guidelines for how to write a 2-act story. Well, who's to say that the 3-act story is easier to write than a 2-act story?
I mean, technically, I'm writing a 4-act story, so who knows?
Oh, so then you're not following the guidelines.
I mean, it's 4 acts, but it could be 3 acts, It's just a matter of how you name stuff.
Okay.
Like, every story needs... I guess they don't even. Never mind. But yeah, that was my answer.
But as you continue to write Project Sunflower, as you get closer to the ending, do you feel... You say, though, in general, getting closer to an ending energizes you to get it done.
Yeah, because then I'm like, ooh, I can actually do this, as opposed to like, ooh, I'm on page 2 of my novel and I have a billion things left to write.
Right.
So definitely seeing the kind of the word count, or like not the word count, but the, I guess, beat count get less and less the more I write.
Yeah.
That kind of also motivates me. But yeah, there's definitely something about seeing the end in sight that makes me like, I can actually do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a point in which you think that might happen for Project Sunflower?
Who knows? If I ever find out, you'll be like one of the first people to know.
How, in general, is the writing habit going for you? You're still waking up at 5 a.m? Are you still meeting your word count goals?
Both yes and no. I don't tend to write on days off anymore because I don't know, because I don't want to, but I should. But yeah, I'm still making progress. I'm heaps away from reaching my monthly goal though, but we're only 16 days in, so we're halfway. So there's time. But
yeah, I mean, are you halfway through your monthly goal?
No, I'm like maybe 33%, 40%.
I mean, that's decent.
Yeah, I don't know. I just want to hire a ghostwriter is what I want.
I mean, you could do that.
Yes, I could, but I also don't want to spend $1 billion on a ghostwriter. So
yeah, unfortunately, you can't force someone to do unpaid labor. It is a sad world that we live in.
Yeah. Damn you, Constitution.
Malin says, I had a similar chat about the series when I saw Sieg in London. I'm unable to write a standalone. What's wrong with me? Help.
Same.
Gay says, I actually love getting to ending because I love the journey my characters have to take than the end point. Like, yeah.
The point.
Okay. The ending is important, but my enjoyment stems from the journey. Ooh, put a pin in that, because that's potentially one of our later sub questions.
Also, a tip to Malin: if you kill off your characters, there's no second novel.
That's true. You can just Rogue One it. Although Rogue
Spoiler alert.
and Rogue One has stories that follow it up, but not with those characters.
These could be prequels.
I know what needs to happen, but I love writing the steps, if that makes sense. I'm too invested in my dang characters. Well, I think for her, though, specifically with Cruel Summer, when she was first putting it up, it was external validation from a lot of different people and now the external validation is coming from like a very specific group of people. I don't know, Katie, do you feel like that has made a difference in terms of like your confidence in the story?
The difference is even after I finished the second draft of Cruel Summer, I was still getting validation. Whereas when I finished the first draft of the original Cruel Summer, after I finished it, I was no longer going to get validation for that version of the story.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's less about like, so it's specifically for that story, because I didn't feel that way about writing the second draft of current Cruel Summer, of the current draft of Cruel Summer, because I still am getting validation from it. I'm querying it now. You know, I have lots of people involved in the process of it for some reason. Whereas with the original version, I was no longer going to get validation because it was done. It was over. It was like, there's no more book for people to comment on.
And you think
in that version,
that hindered your ability to finish it because that
part of it,
without validation?
It was definitely part of it. I think the majority of it was the fact that I did know that I was never going to really come back to that version of the story again.
Right.
Just remember, Catherine, that the most important validation you get is from yourself.
Hard to disagree. We are social creatures. We are social animals. Our ability of how people perceive and react with us, I feel like, is so, you know, people try and say it's not a big deal, but it's a big deal. So
I'm not saying it's not a big deal, but I'm saying, like, make sure that you also validate your work before you let how other people invalidate your work affect you.
Yeah, that's true. I will say, though, I did not believe in the story until other people did.
You believed in it enough to write it.
Yeah, but it's
under arrest.
It's also different, though, because like I would have never rewritten it had I not had the support from other people. I would have just finished it and been done with it, like I was with the previous brain rot I wrote 2 years ago.
Oh my god!
Year
and a half. Year and a half. Don't freak me out like that. I'm like, no way was that 2 years ago.
Year and a half. So my validation in the story is still very low because I don't know what I'm doing.
Why do you think you don't know what you're doing?
Just I don't understand why people like it the way I like it, and yet they do.
They like it for the same reasons that you like it, probably.
Yeah, but I don't understand why. I don't understand why I like it is the thing. So I don't understand why other people like it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Anyway, not today.
I feel like you could just like verbalize it and understand why you like it, and that would be a work of validation in of itself. It'd be like that would also be an interesting little exercise of make a list of internal and external things that make you like the story. You like the characters, you like the validation you receive from it, you like the themes you explore, you like how excited people get when they interact with, like you like how it's making people obsessed with tennis, all those things.
I guess that's what I don't understand. I don't know why people become obsessed with it. I think that's I can't explain it.
I don't think, but at the end of the day, is that your job to explain that? That's a neuroscientist's job to explain that. Can you who can explain certain phenomenon? That's why they're called phenomena.
Why is the sky blue?
Well, because of scattered light. We know that one. We know that one.
You should not have picked the one astronomy thing.
We understand that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel sometimes it's like, I know, I guess it's because when I originally wrote the story, I had a specific audience in mind, people who had already engaged with similar material. And so when people who had never engaged with similar material became obsessed with it, I am confused because I didn't think that they would be the audience. It's like you write a horror novel and then all of a sudden middle-aged moms who only read romance become obsessed with it. And you're like, why the fuck? Like, I'm not trying to invalidate people who like it.
Right.
I'm just personally confused.
You thought that there was too high a barrier of entry.
Yeah, I thought it was too niche, and yet people outside, like,
but
severely
it's not.
outside.
I mean, ultimately, it's a romance with travel and glitz and glamour and competition. You know, yeah, it's niche in the terms of tennis, but I think the story you're telling isn't niche. I think the story you're telling.
Wow, way to say I'm just not unique.
No,
I'm kidding. I'm joking. I was a joke. I was a joke.
I was saying. No, I'm saying you've told a story that resonates with people, and through that resonance, it causes this desire to understand it further, which is then what pushes them towards tennis. Miranda, you're welcome to chime in about this.
But also, Catherine, you said that this story is a lot more commercial than anything else you've written. So why are you out here wondering the questions to your own answers? Like, what gives?
I know. Yeah, I'm just insecure. That's the bottom line. Is I'm cripplingly insecure, and I've been cripplingly insecure about my fantasy. But I've been writing fantasy so much longer that I've convinced myself that I at least know something about it. Whereas with romance, I'm still crippling. That's the secret. I am cripplingly insecure about everything. I just mask really well because I'm a Sagittarius sun.
That's everyone. You're not special. Get over yourself.
I know. I'm just saying though. That's the answer of why I'm like this, is because I'm cripplingly insecure.
And with that,
anyway, Ron with the news.
Kelly says, depends on the angle, I suppose. Internal pressure is more likely to make me procrastinate than external pressure. Oh, I love that. That's such an interesting distinction, because I think for me, I think through my writing slump experiments process, I've discovered. What have I discovered? I don't know. Stay tuned. Even if I've drafted my story before, I'm a complete rewrite girly. Hate being in my own head long enough with second guessing. Is the plot plotting, or are the characters grounded enough? Was there a relevant comment later down? Is that why you were laughing? I was like, you can highlight it if there is.
No, I was laughing at you being like, no, I'll think of something later.
Okay. I've just talked about me too much. I'm trying to keep the conversation on other people right now. Caitlin says, if anything, knowing I'm closer to the ending motivates me more to finish. The anticipation of finishing will make me hyper-focused for a few days. I'm the exact same way. Mullen says, therapy session. I think I'm delaying it because I plotted it, so it's less fun to write, even if it needed to be plotted to make sense. That is so interesting.
Sounds so familiar.
Because Steve, that kind of happened with you with Project Atlas, didn't it?
Yeah. I already wrote this in an outline, so why am I here trying to just expand on my outline? Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other part of the thingamajig didn't work either. Like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Help, I'm drowning. Can't swim.
Well, you say it didn't work, but just because you're in a rough patch doesn't mean ultimately it's not going to work. You know, it only doesn't work if you shelve the project and never return to it. But you're still writing consistently. You're still chomping away at the story. So I don't think you should declare it dead on arrival just yet.
Don't know about chomping, nibbling maybe, but at least it's forward.
Chewing slowly.
One animal's nibble is another animal's chomp. So,
I have tiny mouth.
I don't think that's true.
Wallace is saying this from the perspective of she didn't write anything in the month of August.
Mm-hmm.
So you writing it all is a job.
I wrote this many, you guys. This many words. In Helicorizing, there was some effort in Tibitho, but not a ton. Not a ton.
Not a lot.
But then the past 3 days, literally, you guys, I know we're not doing accountability this week, but can I just say that the procrastinator in me puts the effective person in me on such a pedestal. Literally, I have to get my book printed either today or tomorrow in order to get it back on time to give it to my sister. And I was procrastinating incorporating beta reader feedback for so long. I officially started, I did a couple of cosmetic changes, but I started page 1, an official rewrite of this entire story on Monday, and I finished it yesterday. So can we just appreciate that for a moment? And I think I did it decently too. Maybe not, but I think I did a decent job. So.
Oh, hell yeah!
That surprised me. I was like, what the hell did I touch?
You said to appreciate it, so there I am. Appreciate
Thank you. I appreciate you, Katie, appreciating me. Thank you for the value.
You're welcome. Always here for it.
Some people, Mystery says, I feel accomplished and energized when I manage to write the end. If I'm almost to the end, but it's not working, that does mess me up. Oh, that's interesting. What does that mean? It's not working. Like you feel like you took a wrong turn, or you feel like, what does that mean? The last day of the Worldwide Write-a-thon, I would just work because I was so close, sometimes ignoring the streams occurring. Oh, here we go. This is what it was. I finished 2 different drafts during 2 different Worldwide Write-a-thons. That's okay. Gotcha. Jess says, I've missed the last 40-ish minutes. We've just been talking the whole time. You haven't missed a sprint, babe. Sorry. But like I have zero pressure to type the end, so it doesn't affect my ability to write. My lack of ability to come up with a plot, however, ... Okay, but like I would like to say that this question isn't literal of like typing the end, just that. Like the question is, does the pressure of getting to the end and being done with the story and making that mark of having that completion, you're done, does that affect your work? Which maybe is how you were referencing it, but I don't know. Sorry, Katie got a hoodie. 15 minutes ago.
Also breaking out the emotional support scarf.
It's fall.
Getting too real for you?
Yes, it's fall.
It's
also
fall.
52 degrees here today, so.
I know. I had a fire in 2 separate fireplaces yesterday. It was so amazing.
Wow. Bougie.
Len says, I recently wrote an ending for my draft, but it's not great, so I'm editing the ending and refuse to celebrate or write the end until it feels right. So never. See, I think this is interesting because this is what I thought might be true for some people is that idea of that completion of admitting that the story is done, I suspect it might be tough for certain types of writers. All right. Okay, we're talking a lot about story structures, but I'm so sorry, guys, that I can't get back into that conversation. So I'm going to just skip over it. Looks like it was a really interesting conversation, though. And I do love story structure. And I think we've talked about story structure on Spencer's Shoptalk before. Okay, we're starting here. Casey says, my pressure to figure out the plot completely affects my ability to write. I have 3 separate projects that are rotating away in my brain, waiting for their plots to magically pop in my heads. Mm-hmm. Thank you. You wrote this comment 7 minutes ago. That's what you got to know about Spence and Shop Talk. We have good conversations, but oh boy, do they take a long ass time. Yeah, I think Miranda is talking about Cruel Summer. What's not to like? Kelly says, Logan always tells me, yes, Kelly, you are special and unique, just like everyone else. Rude. Hella rude. I always think of the Incredibles quote where it's like saying everyone's special just means no one is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. What's the news? What is the news? I don't know what the news is.
The news is that Sam is a middle-aged mom who enjoys romance and horror.
Sam's not middle-aged. Oh, well, we were talking about this at the beginning, weren't we?
Are you, Sam?
Sam, are you between the years of 39 and, 50?
45.
Let us know.
Always is the answer to this.
The funnies line? Are we saying the funniest? Because to me, the funnies means comics in a newspaper. Like the funnies on the Sunday paper is like the word for like little comics. That confused me. Miranda says, I'm not being super specific because I know I'm always the same way. People can tell me all the stuff they like, and I'm like, you're lying no matter what they say. You are this way. That is
unless it's criticism, though. Like that's the thing. Is people will be like, this is absolute garbage. And I'll be like, yep, it is.
and weirdly, not to like, I'm not a masochist, but it feels good because it's like someone's being honest with me, because you convince yourself anytime anybody's being nice about your writing that they're not being genuine. But I think it's also because when someone critiques your writing, to me, it evokes a certain level of engagement that I really crave with my story. Someone's like, oh, I really liked it. I'm like, is that creative though? Is that a creative way of engaging with the story? And so I always like question it. I'm like, you're just being nice. You didn't engage with it, which means I failed as a writer. Whereas if you have someone be like, oh, I didn't like this part, I felt like it should have gone a different way. To me, that's like, oh, that's heavy engagement to be altering the story in your own head, of deciding the course of what's best for this story. I feel like, yeah. So I totally.
Do you also go like, if people leave like, ooh, I love this bit where she, cut the toad up and foresaw the weather. I don't know your story, but like when they get into like positive specifics, like not just like, this was fun! Exclamation point, smiley face, as opposed to like, ooh, I really like the bit when she, did the thing and then she went there, and that, like, how that mirrored that bit that you did earlier, and like.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean,
stuff.
Katie, not to, compliment Katie even more, but she is really good when she is engaging with her story. For anybody who wants to make Katie busier than she already is, she's a fantastic beta reader, in my opinion, because she engages with it on a literary level, and she will say, oh my gosh, this line is so perfect because it perfectly sets up this theme. And to me, that is like such a great level of engagement. So I think that's always what I'm looking for. I don't want to just know that you liked it. I want to know why you liked it and what about it worked. And so, I mean, and granted, it's always lovely when people are complimenting it, but there's that line in the back of my head of, oh, well, they're just lying. But then if they say, I liked it because X, Y, Z, then that gives me more confidence that they're telling the truth, because that takes more effort to explain it. And so why would you lie and go through that effort, So.
Yeah.
And also, Katie likes to make fun of your typos, which is always a good time.
She does.
She does. Yeah.
But she did not catch my unintentional Irish moment in a very, very emotionally intense moment. And I'm like, God damn it. All 3 of my beta readers had to read an unintentional Irish moment. And it's literally in a part where our character is having a really difficult realization about something.
It's so funny.
And I'm like, that really kind of deflates the tension when you've got that there. So that was too bad, but it's okay. She caught so much of other stuff. Was I trying to deflect? Oopsies. Yes, always though. I'm always trying to deflect. But you were supposed to. I'm so far behind, I don't even remember what we're talking about anymore. Sam says sports animes are super popular. Prince of Tennis was really mainstream in the 2000s, so this makes sense to me. As long as the story is told well, people will love it. I think that's fair. Wallace, that's the whole psychology of the self-saboteur. If you procrastinate and things fail, it's because you procrastinate. If you don't and it fails, then you can only blame yourself. So it's thanks, Colin. Appreciate that. Danny says, you know that video of the guy going, can I please get a waffle? That's me with the sprint right now. Babe, if we stop oh wait, sorry Danny, I know you don't like those kind of diminutives. My bad, I retract it. If we stop commenting, eventually she'll catch up. It is true, and we are going to sprint. Oh, okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have like less than 10 comments left. Jess says, I have no issue completely a story. I'm glitching out this morning. I finished multiple drafts. I've edited multiple drafts. I've queried stories. Your girl just cannot plot. Main plot, yes. Subplot / B plots, nope, they don't exist.
See, Jess, this is why we need to collab, because I have no main plot, but I have a lot of B and C plot.
I disagree with you. You're pretty good at main plot.
It's just vibes. It's a lot of times just vibes.
Just keep us updated about your lunch order. That is one of the most important parts of the week. Sam says, I'm an ancient immortal of unknown origins who embraces my middle-aged centuries, but also my mom and grandma, though my grandma isn't middle-aged anymore, my mom is. Can I make you a new role? I know you're already mom in the Discord, but I need to also make you this role. I'm going to screenshot it.
Ancient immortal of unknown origins. Who embraces middle-aged centuries. It's amazing.
She's currently in her dark ages.
Mm-hmm. All right. Final comment.
Also, yes, Miranda, you were very, very. Miranda's great. She's very specific in her feedback.
Yes, this is true. Jess says, listen, Wallace, I may not have explained why I like the story. You did, but I did tell you it's one of my favorite things I've ever, and I mean that with my whole. But this wasn't Jess. Nothing I said was about anybody who's beta read for me. It was mainly for people who are in my family who have read my work, and they're like, oh yeah, I really liked it. Yeah, it was good. And like the whole like upticked tone of voice, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, you're a lying liar face. So wait, if you make the roguelike quest, it be the full title. I missed part of it. Ancient, immortal, mysterious, and unknown origins who embraces my... Okay, I'll screenshot that. I will screenshot that, and that's going to be a new role for Jess, or for not Jess, for Sam in the Discord. And oh god, people, people don't know how to beta read, but want to beta read your book. Also, accept all roles and titles bestowed upon me. Good, because I think this is going to be my new bit, where every week I'm just going to give Sam a new role. And it's just going to be, and I'm not going to remove any of the other ones. She's just going to end up with like a million roles. Okay. Are we ready to sprint our second and final sprint before we get into the last bit of questions? I really do think one more sprint, and then we get through the rest of the questions, and that'll bring us to about the 3.5 hour mark. Which
brings us to about the 5 hour mark.
Well, it's a little bit long for us, but ultimately, we haven't had sprints in Shoptalk in 2 months. I feel like it's fine to have one that's a little bit more pregnant than others.
That's a way to say it.
I didn't want to say bloated.
I love a pregnant stream. Pregnancy stream.
Shout out to Planned Parenthood.
Oh man. Okay. We're gonna do
too much.
Another one of my timers because I'm paranoid. Chrome
What if
tab.
Wallace copyright strikes us?
Wouldn't that be hilarious if one day I was just like, you know what? I have the perfect
these bitches.
I have the perfect way of getting rid of all of y'all. Hold on, what just happened? Oh my god, sorry, I'm freaking out. Okay, so I'm not going to sometimes during sprints and Shoptalk, I'll flash the question during the sprint. But I'm not doing that this time because I actually think that makes me get even further behind the comments. But I will just quickly reiterate that next up, we're going to be talking about the anatomy of an ending after this sprint, but for the specific questions will be coming afterwards. But enjoy your 25-minute break. Go to the bathroom, Martha.
Yes, girl.
Not the ad for my own video. Okay.
Nope.
Nope. Right. It looks like we had a selection of people take off by everybody. Katie, how did you do for that sprint?
Did pretty good. Just chatted in various DMs and was working a little bit on my brain rot.
Nice. Even though you're not supposed to be working this week.
Yeah, but it's just making mood boards. So does that really work?
When I asked that question, like when we first began to hang out, there was a resounding yes to mood boards counting it as writing.
That was for me. I don't. Other people
I
have.
think it was just like collectively from the group.
Okay, touche. You win this one.
Thank you.
Elaine joined. Hi. Steve, how did you do?
Open on my document and just stared at the binder for 25 minutes.
Ooh.
Was that effective at all?
Effective to what end, Wallace? To getting more writing done? No. To
helping
fuel
you
and fan the fire
visualize-
of my existential crisis? Absolutely.
What about like to visualize the story, to give you ideas, to anything like that?
No.
Okay. And I kind of used that sprint to just take a break from the toils of hosting because I was like, whew, that was so much. So I just decompressed. All right, now it is time to get into the anatomy of an ending. Let's see, it has been 2.5 hours. I could just
Do both. Do both.
do we think we should do both? Because we
Yes.
could just do.
Let's do both. It's been so long.
I'm gonna.
It's gonna be another 3 months until we hear again.
No. Let us have this.
Well, I feel like the thing is that two parts of both questions, like the first part of question 2.1 and 2.2, are kind of two sides of the same coin. So we're gonna, okay. This is question 2.1, which is what constitutes a good ending in your opinion? What are some of your favorite endings in literature? And the second question is going to be talking about bad endings, but I don't want to prevent the flow of conversation. So I'm going to say we can discuss both, like, through the discussion of what's a good ending, we can discuss what is a bad ending. And then at the very end, we can discuss the final part of the final question. But yeah, for now, Catherine or Steve, do you want to go first? You want to switch it up? Go first?
Sure.
All right. Steve, to you, in your opinion, what constitutes a good ending, and what are some of your favorite endings in literature?
Let's start with favorite endings and deconstruct maybe, because that will kind of answer the first part.
Okay, I love it.
Some of my favorite endings include, I think I've spoken about this like a billion times already, but I really love the ending to the Hunger Games trilogy. I think it absolutely pays off in the novels. Not too keen on the movie, I feel like, but I'm also not a huge fan of the movies. They're serviceable for what they are. But the Hunger Games books, I thought the ending was you talked earlier about finding the true ending, and I think the ending that Suzanne Collins went with was the true ending of the Hunger Games story, in my very uneducated opinion.
No, I think there's something to that, because I remember reading it and being so angry at how she ended it, but then, and not just the ending, but the big final thing that happens in Katniss's journey, right? I remember being so angry, but then as the years have gone on and I just consider it from a storytelling perspective, it does have an appropriateness to it that makes sense. So yes. Yeah,
so absolutely love that ending. Also really love the Lord of the Rings ending. I don't know if you've seen/watched that. You know the gist of Lord of the Rings, right? Like Frodo and Sam goes on this journey to throw the ring in a volcano.
Yeah.
and then the ending ends like it ends with a mirroring of the beginning, where the characters are back in Hobbiton. They're at the inn, at the tavern, and there's like the world is the same, but they are very much not the same. I also love that kind of ending.
Yeah.
That's just when you go back to the beginning and it's like it's the same, but it's so different.
Yeah.
I also love like one of those moments. I think it's really good. That especially for the movie. I think the movie did the ending of the series a lot better than the book. Because in the book, there's like this whole little sequel. Is that what we're calling it? Like after the big book is done, then there's like basically a novella at the end of Lord of the Rings with something like completely different.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I think the movie very much did the like epic saga that is Lord of the Rings justice as compared to the books. But the book still ends with like the main characters, and then like the main character Frodo has his own little like, you know, I think okay, this is gonna be really boring, but I think Lord of the Rings does story nesting really well. If you know that concept, where
Stories
like
within stories.
yeah, like you begin with one story and then you add another story and another story, and then you wrap them up in reverse ending. So basically, you want to wrap up your B plot before the end of Act 3, basically in a standalone, and then like so you end them in reverse. So like you have nest. Yeah, it makes sense in like a coding way. It makes sense. But I think Lord of the Rings does that really well because they open up with Frodo's journey and then they close with Frodo's journey's end. And between those two, outer points, you have the entirety of the epic that is Lord of the Rings. And I just think it's neat. So I guess in terms of what constitutes a good ending for me, I love mirroring when you mirror a beginning. That's one of my faves. Also, I need it to be not happy ending, but I'm satisfied with a content or like a bittersweet ending. But if like talking a little bit about the next question about bad endings, like Harry Potter ending, like yes, it's a happy ending, but it's absolute garbage. And I just don't think that I think she fucked up. Well, she fucked up a lot of things.
Do you mean like the epilogue is garbage, or the climax, the Battle of Hogwarts, and
I think the climax to the Battle of Hogwarts should have been the ending of the novel.
Okay.
I think that would have been the perfect ending, and the epilogue fudged it all up. As opposed to Lord of the Rings epilogue, which I think added to the story, as opposed to just like putting two lines under the answer. I don't like that. That makes sense. I like more open-ended stuff, like Hunger Games, which is, I mean, it's not open-ended per se, but it's like there's a ... to the moment, and I love a good dot. I love a good ellipsis.
You like a lack of closure?
Not necessarily. I like closure, but I also like closure with an ellipsis.
Okay. So I think it's similar to what Kelly is saying. Like it when an ending has enough threads open to play with. Love some theories, but it's a delicate balance.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like a setup to another book. I feel like Lord of the Rings has like that, and also the Hunger Games has that kind of there's closure, but there's an ellipsis at the end. So you can
see the characters continuing on with their lives, whereas like with Harry Potter's epilogue, she just slammed the door and was like, "Here's how they live the rest of their lives, happily ever after, goodbye." And like Hunger Games, you understand that there's still going to be ebbs and flows in their lives.
Yeah, I like an ending with a nuance, basically. Because like for the Harry Potter ending, it's just like, okay, so these 7 novels had no impact on the character because it's just like happily ever after. There's no trauma. There's no kind of come to terms with whatever went down in his teenage years. It's just like, let me name my kids shitty names and send them on the merry way to Hogwarts, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Also, I hard disagree with this, Miranda. I think you can have an ending that is satisfying and good, and also have an epilogue, because that's what I'm doing. So.
Ooh, but that's interesting because that's like your main critique over Harry Potter. So does that at all make you
I
question
don't.
validity?
My main critique isn't that Harry Potter has an epilogue. That's not my main critique.
Okay, sorry, not main critique, but that's been the critique you've been talking about right now in this moment is the epilogue.
It's the execution of the epilogue that he has a problem with, not necessarily the epilogue itself.
But
it's the execution of such a thing.
But
it's
I'm just
J.K.
saying,
Rowling very much like it's a wrap. They lived 17 years. They had 10 kids. They got a job in the ministry. And nothing bad ever happened again. Whereas Hunger Games also have an epilogue to the story, which is spoiler alerts. I know you said like a parameter of 10 years, but I'm going to talk. Well, it's probably been 10 years at this point. What is time? But like it's Katniss and Peter sitting and like talking about making this book out of all the characters that contributed to the kind of downfall of the not the Constitution. Whoa, what's it called? Capital. Thank you. So I think that you very much can have an epilogue, and even though I think an epilogue can add to a good ending, but it also can ruin a good ending or like an ending period. So
how does the epilogue that you're writing serve your story's ending?
It's kind of because my ending is very like final to the plot, which I think an ending should be. But then this also like my epilogue is my ... moment. That makes sense.
Interesting. And that's the thing that you had in your head all from the start. Like that, the epilogue is what came to you, and then the ending.
That is basically one of the first scenes that came fully fledged into my head. Like, okay, it's these two people standing in this spot, talking about this specific subject, this specific event going on around them, and like the main character is specifically this thing. And then I was like, how do we arrive at that point, basically? So it very much is the ellipsis to my, 2 lines under my climax.
Yeah. But is it like, because I think sometimes and I know this is what you're saying, the ellipsis can be done well, but it can also be done badly. Like the thing that I hate about so many horror movies is the final girl usually kills the slasher, and it's like, oh, thank God we've seen it all go through. And then like the last shot is the eyes of the monster, opening again or something like that. And to me, I always hate that because it's one final jump scare that then invalidates the entire story of like, we had this resolution, we had her achieve what needed to be achieved. So, I mean, I'm assuming that's not what your epilogue is, though. It's like a different kind of ...
Yeah, I'm not talking about like, because I also hate that thing where it's like, oh, like, okay, so, there's a hand sticking up out of the water again because, he's alive.
Right.
And I don't like that. But like Sam says, it's more of a wrap-up of the story as opposed to my climax, which is a wrap-up of the plot, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. All right. So Sam says, I think it's actually entirely subjective, which I agree, which is why I put in your opinion. As an easy answer is like an ending that satisfactorily wraps up the story, but there's a whole ass genre that I dislike 8 out of 10 times because I find the ending format hugely unsatisfactory. Objectively, it's fine, and there's a reader base for it, but not this gal.
What's the genre?
Let us know. Kelly says, like it when the ending has enough. Oh wait, we already said that. Sorry. Laura enjoyed something in The Hobbit that was, or in The Lord of the Rings that was not in the movies. Kelly says, no one likes a story with a gaping open ending and nothing makes sense and didn't follow the plot up to that point. Open enough for fun ideas, not open that it falls. Having one and needing one are two different things. Oh, that's interesting. Your ending should not need an epilogue. If it needs one, it's not a good ending. Yeah, that's a good distinction. Steve, do you think that your story needs its epilogue?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, if the epilogue is needed, why isn't it just the final chapter?
That's
it's the same issue I had. It's the same issue I have with prologues. Like, oh, go die in a fire. But yeah. I don't know. But I'm more lenient with epilogues in general than I am with prologues.
But I wonder, like, is this like a true epilogue, or is this just the denouement? Like, is this just the resolution of the climax? Or is it like a 10 years later, two people standing in a field talking about something?
Not 10 years later, but it is after because I kind of just, I mean, what I envision in my head is me just cutting the climax like really, really tight towards the climax, and then not having like
A denouement?
a denouement, and then basically, I guess the epilogue kind of also shines a light on the denouement without having gone through that, like writing wise.
Mm.
Like you see the outfall of the climax, but there's like in my head I haven't written or like outlined an outfall of the climax. It's just like, climax, clear cut, and then not 10 years later, but sometime later, it's like, okay, so this is how the world is right now. And that kind of gives context to the outfall or the like outcome of the climax, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I get it. Sam says, personally, I like either a hopeful/happy ending. I don't even need it to be realistic or an ending that satisfies all the plots of story I care about, happy or not. Okay.
Also, this is very like genre for me, genre depending. Like a happy ending for like a fun action adventure like The Mummy, yes. A happy ending for like this big epic tale that, for example, The Hunger Games is, which is like a lot of trauma, a lot of like, people's destinies being like, fucked up. I don't think I could enjoy Hunger Games if there was a happy ending to it.
Yeah.
It was like Katniss was 50 years and she was home baking bread for Peter. Like, well, the kids go off to school.
Well, it'll be Peter baking the bread, but okay. Right.
I had it there that I'm not good at. Yes, moving on.
Oh shoot, I had a point to make. Oh right, and so I think then, but the overarching thread to connect there is that for you, a good ending is something that remains in line and consistent with the story itself, right?
Yes, I think so.
Hold on, sorry. Okay, Jess is leaving a lot of comments, and I'm just trying to understand their order. Do we think the the entire subbook series is about justice for getting a psychopathic, obsessive child abuser? That is Harry Potter. Or 2, because I guess that one poor kid got named after 2 people with those characteristics. Oh, I get it. Okay. Jess says, the epilogue makes it feel like that's what her whole series was about. Without it, it's about using the power of friendship to defeat all evils, which means an epilogue can change the theme of your book, and that's scary. That's really interesting. Sam says, going along with what Miranda said, I think the plot should be done before an epilogue, but an epilogue can be used to wrap up the story. Interesting. And this is interesting because Sam is a horror lover. I hard disagree with that the monster surviving invalidates a horror movie story. The characters still have their journey, their arc, the monster story just continues. But if their story, I mean, you could argue that their story is about survival and they survived, so that's fine. But like for a lot of it, it's about overcoming something, and then that twist ending means that they didn't actually overcome what they wanted to overcome. And I'm not thinking about more like nuanced horror films like It Follows and stuff like that. I'm thinking, the Halloween franchise, which literally you can always count on the fact. It just makes it unwatchable for me at this point. They made like 10 of these movies, and the stakes feel both high and low to me because I know at the end they're going to kill Michael, but then at the very end, Michael is not going to be dead, and so there's no point to the story anymore at that point. I'm like, well, they're killing him for now, and it's because then they bring in the old people, like the character had their moment, but then, what's her face from Sydney from Scream goes off to college, and then the killer follows her there, and it's like, so the story, this poor girl's just being traumatized for her entire life, and this is like the biggest tragedy. So,
I also think it is very difficult if you have a monster story it also depends on like who's your story about. Is it about the monster or is it about the survivors? Because you can have your monster survive, and then theoretically why you have your monster survive is to make another movie or story about that monster. I think it'd be very hard to recycle that in a way that is now original and authentic in your second movie that isn't just repeating the first movie. Because the first movie is, the first Michael Myers film is all about him slashing teenagers. And then the second movie is about him slashing teenagers. And then the 16th movie is about him slashing teenagers. Like, there has to be something newer or original that's happening within the context of the story for the reason why you would want the monsters to survive. Because, like, the monster has to survive for a reason. Like, plot-wise.
Well, actually, though...
You specifically mentioned final girls, and that's where I have an issue with the trope. Or, like, they overcome the enemy, and then it's like in some post-credit bullshit, like the enemy gets the girl anyway. Hate it.
Right. That's what I'm saying, right? It's like...
Yeah.
It really depends on your context of what story you're telling. Because if your story is ultimately about the monster and not the people involved, and people are just like puppets to convey your monster, or like some other horror that transcends, like humanity as a whole, because oftentimes monsters are symbolic of a real life horror.
Right.
Like what ultimately are you trying to say with the monster surviving? And like, is that your point, or is it your point to talk about female trauma? Because that's what a lot of final girl movies are about, and oftentimes that genre is about. So if your monster just comes back, you're just negating the fact that feminine presenting people can never overcome the patriarchy, because that's oftentimes what slasher films are.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think it just goes back to like the subjectiveness of it all, right? Because I feel like for a lot of horror fans, the fact that the monster comes back is one of the things they love, because they love the franchise, they love the genre expectation. And so for a lot of people, those endings are good, and for others, they aren't. So
it's almost like it's subjective.
That's why
almost
why I included the in your opinion. Okay.
Oh, I wasn't dragging anything. I was just like, yeah, we can talk about this forever, but in the end, we're gonna have different opinions.
Yeah. Also, Mullen brings up a good one with Happy Death Day. I think Happy Death Day does the same trope, different story, super well. Super well.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
We're getting to that time of year, the time of year to be watching these kind of movies.
So good.
Let's see.
So excited for Hocus Pocus.
I'm nervous for it. I really have to prep my brain to just be like, you just have to see this as a separate work from the original, because that way if it's awful, it doesn't ruin the original for me. Because that's my other thing, is that it's really hard for me to do that, where I watch a sequel to a movie that's beloved, and it's like a sequel that came out 20 years later, and I'm like, oh, that sucked, but whatever. And then I go back to rewatch the thing that I originally loved, and the whole time I'm just like, God, how much does it suck that, the opening sequence of the sequel is these main characters dying, like that sucks. So not that will happen to Hocus Pocus, but
I mean, I only watched Hocus Pocus last year, so I don't have to say that.
That's fair.
Same fears, but it looked good in the trailer. Also, Disenchanted. Oh my God, did you see the trailer?
I am excited for Disenchanted.
Oh my God, there's like...
That looks so good.
I had so high hopes, and they exceeded my expectations with the trailer alone.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be so good.
Well,
Amy Adams, looking cool.
That's when you start bringing it down the level. The movie can be great, but if you've overhyped yourself, it won't live up to expectations. So I always just have to have base level, not bad, low expectations, but just like base level expectations to accurately reflect how good or bad a movie was.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Jess says, this conversation just ended the epilogue of French Grim Reaper. Need to make notes. And Sam says, mildly pedantic. The definition of an epilogue is a section or speech at the end of the book or play that serves as a comment on or conclusion to what has happened. Epilogues can be conclusions.
And I'm not saying they can. I'm just saying I prefer my conclusions to be ellipses.
Gotcha. There is a difference between a slasher and a monster movie. These are different subgenres. This is also true.
Yes. There's a lot of nuance within the horror genre. That,
mm-hmm.
And again, that's why it depends on what, like, contextually, what are the expectations you go in with? Because I'm not going into a Michael Myers, like into a Halloween film, being like, oh, I hope they have some really large, overarching conversation about humanity. I'm going in there to see him kill teens, but watching something like Haunting of Hill House or Midnight Mass, like I'm looking for the overarching theme within it.
Midnight Mass.
I wonder if something new coming out from them this year.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's this year, but he is doing a not a remake, a retelling of the Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe.
I don't even know that one. Lauren Font says, I like endings that leave space for imagining the character's future, so not too decisive, but leaving me excited about a possible future.
I agree.
Yeah, maybe Spence and Shoptalk in October will be horror.
Ooh.
Is there going to be Spence and Shoptalk again in October?
I don't think so.
I'm so excited for this.
No, I don't think there will be. Like, literally, let's look at the calendar. Talking about derailing a conversation. It's writing retreat the first week. I'm going to be traveling on the 14th. I'm going to be traveling on the 21st, and I'm going to be traveling on the 28th. I will not be at a single. I'll be at. Oh, well, that's interesting.
We could do it at Written in the Mitten.
We could do it at Written in the Mitten, which means there will be a Spence and Shoptalk in basically like 2 weeks. But we could do it then.
So. I would love to, especially if we talk about horror. I love horror.
Oh God! But I'm going to be so overwhelmed from Written in the Mitten in general. We'll see. It's fine. I enjoy this. Do I?
I'm glad. Keep saying it. You'll eventually believe it.
I didn't leave this out. I know I'm generalizing a lot, but that's because I'm a general viewer of horror, and so that's my interpretation of it. Laura says, I love the unknowable evil that never stalks, but it always made me anxious with that soundtrack. That whole movie, the concept made me so anxious. Malin says, I don't know how we all ignored The Last Mummy and The Last Indiana Jones. I do ignore The Last Mummy because they switched Rachel Weisz's character, and so that makes it easier for me to be like, this is fan fiction.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I was so disappointed, but I also fully support her.
This is the exact same point that I just made, Jess, which you commented this forever ago, but like when there's a recasting, it's so easy for me to just be like, this is a derivative work. Or not derivative, but like, it's just not, it's not part of canon for me. Not part of my canon. That is true, actually. The plot lines in 4, yeah, that's fair. You're not wrong. I feel like the plot line of 2 is decent. Anyway, it's fine.
I like the plot line of 3. I'm gonna.
Never seen a single one of them.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, but my memory is that we marathoned them all in a single day last year.
We did.
Yeah.
Yep. A single night, not a day. A single night.
How did we do that?
They're not very long. They're not very long, is the thing.
I guess that's true. Kelly watched Enchanted with the girls the other day. They loved it, and Hocus Pocus was always a fall staple. Yep, it's ultimate nostalgia. Yeah, that's fair. Sam was saying she was in support of your opinion, not against it. So you were sassy to her for no reason.
I stand by it.
He's just the surly teenager, always looking to defy mom. Always.
It's part of my fruity fat boy persona.
Yeah, this is something that I find really interesting, Miranda, is how trailers are used to manipulate audience expectations. And this is kind of a little off topic, but I just want to give you guys a little piece of life wisdom that I feel like I came up with by myself, but maybe this is like common knowledge. But anytime you're seeing a trailer for a movie and they're like, the reviews are in, critics say, visually stunning, the most beautiful cinematography I've ever seen, that means the movie sucks. Because it's like that's like the only nice things that they could think of to say are the visuals of it. And that's why I was super worried when the Rings of Power started being advertised on like TV and stuff, the Amazon Lord of the Rings show, because that's all it was. It was like, they've brought the world of Tolkien to life with the magnificent visuals. And I was like, uh-oh. But now, so yeah, just keep
I like the Rings of Power, though.
I'm just saying, just keep it in mind.
Have you seen it?
I watched the first 2 episodes.
Was it visually stunning?
That's a conversation for a different day. Anyway, Katie.
Hi.
What constitutes a good ending in your opinion? What are some of your favorite endings in literature?
So much like everyone else, I like endings that feel emotionally satisfying and consistent with the things that have been foreshadowed. If you have a lot of foreshadowing in your books and then you don't come through in your ending, even if people are guessing what your ending is going to be, so that's what I like in an ending. Mm-hmm. Whatever could I be referring to? I wonder. So, favorite ending.
I was trying really hard to not bring up TV shows.
Well, here's the thing.
Because I specifically said in literature, Catherine.
I know. I didn't say it. Did I? I'm trying to. I had one in my head, but now it's gone. Oh, I really loved. No one's going to know this, but I really loved the ending of the City of Brass trilogy. It is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. It's a fantasy trilogy, and so I really like the ending of all three books. But the ending of the third one, when you set up an epic series like this, I think George R. R. Martin's currently going through this as with Game of Thrones. But when you set up a really epic series with a lot of characters and a lot of plot arcs and a lot of things going on, it's hard to emotionally satisfy. And I feel like what City of Gold, that's the last one, specifically did really well without spoilers, is bringing all of this like these plot devices and these set pieces and like cool magic systems and really bringing it back to the heart of a theme. So throughout the entire story, there's a lot about family and family dynamics. And so the ending of City of Gold, the climactic ending, is very much coming back to the issues and problems with, that were explored throughout the rest of the series in an emotional way. So it wasn't like big and epic, like a big crazy battle scene, because there'd been a lot of those in the previous books. And so it really did come back to the emotional story of them. And that's what I think was really successful, is it wasn't focusing on all these big pieces and making it bigger and bigger, but rather scaled back down to focus on the point of view characters interacting with each other and like having a philosophical debate about how they should proceed. And then, ultimately the character that you're in the head of wins, ultimately, but at the price of what their beliefs are. And so I think that's very similar to like the Hunger Games, and the ending of Harry Potter, if you axe the epilogue, is like this emotional come together of all of the things that you've been exploring thematically through the emotional through line, is more important to me specifically than with the actual like action of the ending, if that makes sense.
It does.
So that's what I like in an ending.
Sure. And City of Brass is your main example in literature?
Yeah, City of Brass. Six of Crows is another good one.
I hated that ending.
Crooked Kingdom has a good ending. What are you talking about?
No.
I disagree, but
I think this might be another Hunger Games moment where in 10 years I'll appreciate it, but right now, hell hath no fury. Like,
a man scorned.
A man scorned.
Yeah, that's also me with How I Met Your Mother. So like, but I'm doing that in a very big wait ... like settlement. But spoilers for the ending of How I Met Your Mother. But when that episode first came out, I was horrified by everything by it. But now, 10 years later, from a storyteller's perspective, I actually do understand why the mother is dead. Like, I understand that actually is kind of beautiful in the context of why this show has occurred. It's a father sitting down talking to his children. But the Robin element of it all is what I don't think I'll ever accept, given how much time was spent trying to pull us away from that. And it's kind of going back. Sorry, we're doing TV shows. Sorry. After I was like, hey, is kind of it's giving Game of Thrones, where it's like they wanted to subvert audience expectations, and so then they spent this whole time being like, well, how do we best subvert it? Well, we'll just tell them for 5 years that these two would make a horrible couple, and then at the very end they're like, and now they're a couple now, and you're like, you want us to think that's a happy ending? So
Yeah.
It's interesting how endings your opinion on them can change as you personally go through life. Let's see. Mullen says, I just need my endings to wrap up every loose thread and give me a glimpse of what's after the characters rather than feel rushed and abrupt. Sam says, some of my fave endings include the endings to In the Forest of the Night, very woman finding herself and inner strength, but in a way I don't normally see women. Oh, I love that. Circle sidebar again. Are we not having another Spence and Shoptalk for another 3 months, or was that a joke? It might be in 2 weeks. It might be in December. We'll see.
Stay tuned.
Sam the Giver, which was my one exception to the open ending. It was just like that, damn good, and is canonically happy. I know now, so that is also true. All right, so here's what. Yeah, Katie.
The Giver made me think of how in a lot of dystopian. So the Giver's whole concept, the promise of the premise beyond the first book cannot be given again. I feel the same way with Divergent.
Yeah.
And a little bit with Hunger Games, actually, because I personally, from like a reader standpoint of just personal taste, I didn't love the third book of the Hunger Games. From like a storytelling craft perspective, I can appreciate it. But for me personally, I didn't like it. So I think dystopia, which is Giver's dystopian, in a way, is very difficult to pull off a satisfying ending by the actual convention of the genre, which is you have this interesting concept, which you can only do it for 1 book. Or if you're lucky with the Hunger Games, you can do it for 2 books.
Yeah.
I think they did successfully with 3 books. I think they did successfully with the entire trilogy.
There was no Hunger Games in the 3rd book.
I know, but there kind of was, but it wasn't like it was the reverse Hunger Games, where it wasn't like the capital putting them in arena. It was the arena putting the capital in the capital. Am I saying that right? Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, the arena was
the reverse. Yeah, it was a reverse Uno, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate it too. It's just not my favorite thing to read personally, and that's why I tend to stay away from dystopia, because that's just and dystopia series specifically, which is why I like that The Giver is open-ended, because you can go on. You don't have to read the rest of the quartet. At least I don't think so. I'm perfectly satisfied with the ending of The Giver, and I don't have to read the rest of them, because the actual concept that made me want to read it will no longer be explored in the way that it was in the first book, because then you're just repeating stuff. Which Hunger Games is the most successful example of this, and I think that's why dystopia popped off in the way that it did. But no one else has been able to recreate Suzanne Collins's incredible work, because her dystopia was actually based on real societal issues.
Right.
In a way that is meta.
There was a lot of mediocre dystopia being published around the Hunger Games time. I read through some things that I did not want to put my eyeballs to.
Yeah.
Well, people read the Hunger Games and went, you know what I'm going to take out of the Hunger Games? The romance. And it was like, no! No!
You ever read, what is that called? Is it called Uglies by Scott Westerfield?
Oh my God. Those came out before
Hunger Games,
Those came out before Hunger Games, though.
Oh, okay. Well, I only read it after the Hunger Games. So, but I don't know. I think Suzanne Collins absolutely nailed the genre, and then everything else was just poor imitations, which is usually how it goes. With I guess, of course you did, Miranda. Oh, of course you did.
I just remember in the second book when they become pretty and they get these wrist bracelets that allow them to jump off buildings, and they don't have it'll stop their fall before they fall, and they can just jump off buildings for funsies. And I remember being like, oh my God, I wish I could have that, so I'll never fall off a building, as if that was a legitimate rational fear. Anyway. Kelly says, circle again. Are we not having oh wait, no, we already did that. She's saying 3rd time's the charm. If you did address this, I'm sorry, but we'll be covering beginnings next time. No, Kelly, the topic for next Sprints and Shop Talk will be decided probably within 24 hours of the next Sprints and Shop Talk.
Are you open to people leaving suggestions in the suggestion box?
Always. Yeah, that makes my life easy. And if you want, Kelly, you can go back and on this channel, you can see the Spence and Shoptalk thumbnails are all the same to help people differentiate. And we covered like just a wide range of topics. And unfortunately, I have removed all the Spence and Shoptalks from my channel because I was terrified of my channel getting taken down because of timer usage. But they're just privated. They're still there. So if there's one that you're like, I loved that one, I can maybe like give it you an unlisted link or something. I don't know. But yeah. But funnily enough, though, that took me from having 112 videos to 88. So I had missed my 100th video thing, but now I've got another shot at it. So that's oh my gosh, I had caught up with the comments and now I'm behind again. Dang it. Sam read all 4 of the Hunger Games books or of the Giver Quartet and really enjoyed the way the author did it. She's like, okay, but what if this society evolved this way instead of the way it did in the Giver? And book 4 wrapped it all together in interconnected threads. Loved it. That is awesome. But I do, in general, don't like dystopian for similar reasons. As Katie stated, Malin says, I mean, the Divergent series was mediocre at best. I'm sorry to say it, but I read it quite late, so I didn't have the whole I'm a teen, so this is a great thing going on. Katie and I were just talking about that. I have this theory that for the majority of people, your favorite book in your life, it's kind of irrelevant what the book is. It's about what book you happen to be reading at a certain age, so what book that you read that you are going to enjoy between the ages of like 13 and 16, I think one of those books is going to become your favorite book for your life. That's just a theory I have. I think Elaine is saying she loved The Uglies. Miranda says, the way that man basically fully predicted the way we use social media. Oh, that's interesting. I did enjoy the Maze Runner books, though. I felt like those were mediocre. Miranda says, I think you'd like it more if you realized how old it was. Reading after the Hunger Games might ruin it. That's fair. Okay, I'm caught up. No more
no more chit-chat.
Broadcast.
All right.
No, we didn't talk about our least favorites.
I'm good, babe. It's happening. I'm not ending the broadcast. I'm just trying to get to the next question. So... this is the next question. What are the hallmarks of an unsatisfying ending? I feel like for the most part, oh, shice.
I can still hear you. You're just frozen.
Oh, that is what a freeze frame, though.
Hello?
Hello? Yes, maybe.
Hi. At the end, it does this to me. Brutal.
You're back. You're fine. We're fine.
I'm getting a notification that my internet is crapping out. Maybe we should just end the broadcast. But
whoa!
Okay. So we don't have to necessarily touch on what's an unsatisfying ending, in your opinion. You can just talk about endings that you don't like and why you didn't like them. But then my main question that I really want to focus on is the back half of this question, which does a bad ending ruin the story? And I want to clarify, because I can already feel Katie's like literary analysis coming out. I want to clarify that I'm not asking, should it? Like surely a story should be able to stand on its merits even if the ending isn't good. But my question is, does it for you personally? If the story has a bad ending, does it ruin the story as a whole for you? So, Katie, we'll start with you this time. Just discuss this topic as you will. I'm going to take a nap.
How dare you?
I'm still here. Hello?
Okay. Sorry, my brain just restarted as that was so shocking. I think for me, absolutely, yes. A bad ending ruins the entire story. Okay, so I think something that we don't often touch upon as writers is how much reading is oftentimes emotional labor. And so we put so much of ourselves into a story, and especially if we're enjoying the story or if we really like the story up until that point, because if it's a mediocre beginning and a mediocre end, sure, whatever. But I think if you're really enjoying the story and it's, you're really engaging with the material, as we've talked about before, you're putting a lot of energy. Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right though, because that's the exact example, is putting so much of yourself and so much of your life and so much time into a story that when the ending is bad, it completely ruins all of that work and all that labor that I have personally gone through as a reader as well. Because when you're writing the story, unless you're just keeping it for yourself, like there are going to be other people who engage with it and have an audience. And like that's part of the point of telling a story, is to have an audience. And so if you fuck up your ending and like have a bad ending that completely either subverts or just, you know, doesn't make any sense, the rest of the story is moot because none of it ends up actually fucking mattering. Like all of these themes that you've built upon, all of this work that this person, that this writer has done, or this showrunner or whatever has done, no longer matters because you just absolutely destroyed all of that work for the sake of subverting expectations. So when I've like bad endings that really grind my gears are ones that have really good beginnings, middles, and ends, and you feel like you're gonna get a good ending, and then it just fucking fails.
But I just think that I agree with you. I do. Like my personal enjoyment of a story, I think a story is ruined if the ending is bad. But it's just interesting to reflect on because so much of life is this consistent reminder of it's not the destination, it's the journey. But
yeah, when the destination sucks, the journey will also sucks. Like going to the dentist, ending sucks, journey sucks.
Not if you stop for a latte on the way. The journey can be lovely. You listen to a podcast, and you know what I mean?
That is going to be cut by an editor anyway, so who cares?
But the problem with that metaphor, though, is because it's like you go on this journey, you get a latte at a Starbucks, you go to the dentist, it sucks. And then the next time you go back, you're like, okay, I have to go back to the dentist next year. You go back to the dentist, you go to the Starbucks, and someone has shit in your latte. And
but like your dentist is at the Starbucks. No, it's like you get to the Starbucks and you're like, I'm just gonna enjoy being here at the Starbucks. But then you see your dentist sitting at a table and he's holding the like prongs that he stabbed you with last year, and he's just sitting there waiting for you, and he's like, it's coming. I get it.
So it's
I absolutely agree. Like having such a strong beginning and middle part as Game of Thrones did, and putting 8 years of my life into emotionally laboring watching that show, only for it to fall so flat and become so culturally irrelevant that I can't even watch the spin-off show that has gotten raving reviews.
You really should, though. It's kind of good.
I can't bring myself to do it. I'm like, I can't. Like,
I'm telling you, Steve, I was the exact same way. And then I was bored one night and I wasn't feeling well. And it was like the only thing I could think to watch. And it will shock you how quickly you're like, no, I am here for this. It will shock you how quickly you fall back into it.
No, because I'm not mean, but I'm very petty, so I will not watch it out of pettiness.
That's
and also
who are you being petty against? The people who did the dirty to Game of Thrones aren't on this show. This show is made by the people who wanted to fight for Game of Thrones and make it better. So,
I have a theory, though.
Can I just
go ahead.
Complete my statement?
Yeah.
The show ending was so bad that George R.R. Martin has said, I don't think I'll do that ending in my novel anyway. Like, imagine doing something that George R.R. Martin tells you to do, and he's like, you know what? That was so bad. I'm going to do something different for my novels.
Which is interesting because George has always been the, like, if you're building up towards something, don't change it just because of audience expectation. So, yeah, it's interesting.
But I also think George has done a lot better foreshadowing theoretically what the ending would be of Game of Thrones in the books than they did in the TV show.
Yeah.
Count your blessings, Laura. Count your blessings.
Count your blessings. I will say, though, in regards to this, this will return back to Game of Thrones. I absolutely despised Endgame. I still despise Endgame. Marvel's Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried to watch movies and shows afterwards that take place after the ending of Infinity War, and it has soured those movies and those experiences for after.
But so how about like the first Iron Man, the first Thor? Can you still watch all of those?
No, not really. No.
Wow. Okay.
I can't. I especially can't watch Captain America after what they did.
Interesting.
Because I just like these. Because specifically, it's Captain America, Steve Rogers' ending that pissed me off.
Yeah.
We don't have to get into that today. But
were you a Stucky girl?
Yes.
Okay, that tracks.
Yes, but I'm also gonna, the character that they built for Steve Rogers would have never gone back to the past to be with someone he danced with one time, while he willingly knows that his best friend, regardless of whether there's homoeroticism or not,
you're good. You should have made this video while you're painting yourself purple, babe. So
shh, it's fine. Anyway, Game of Thrones, though, however, with it's a prequel
Mm-hmm.
And it takes place hundreds of years before Game of Thrones. So like the events of Game of Thrones like aren't souring the events of the previous, right? Because it's not after. It's a different
story.
It's a completely different generation and era.
It's tainting the universe to me.
I understand. I feel that, and I get that. But I do think that's a difference of why people could like, House of the Dragon, but hate the original Game of Thrones.
I will say on the other end of the spectrum, though, I absolutely love Song of Achilles. I hate despite the ending, but I still enjoy the book, despite hating the ending. So
that is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that the ending ruins the story?
Yes, but I still enjoy the story, even though it's ruined. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it does.
Like, the ending definitely kind of sours the experience when you reread it, because I have reread it, even though I'm not a rereader. But it was just, Madeline Miller's linguistic skills. Can she just serve me that linguine?
Yeah.
But it's just because it's so good and the build-up is so good, and even though the ending kind of just, absolutely sucks, I think this is another case of like 10 years in the future. I look back and be like, yeah, you know what? She did good. She did the right thing. As opposed to Game of Thrones, where I don't think I'll ever be like, you know what? They actually didn't fumble. It was deserved.
I think that's interesting because it's the distinction between an ending you don't like versus a bad ending. Game of Thrones had a poorly executed ending. For me, How I Met Your Mother, outside of the Robin issue, which I think is also poorly executed, the mother being dead was an ending I didn't like, but then over time I could have, like, if that was how the show had ended, I would still have been able to go back and rewatch those first episodes and like the earlier seasons and stuff, and it would be bittersweet knowing why this is happening, but it still doesn't invalidate the story. The worst thing you can do is have an ending that invalidates your story. So,
yeah,
I think.
Because I think the Song of Achilles ending both follows real life history. So
yeah,
unfortunately, and I also think it kind of makes sense for it. Like that's the almost the expectation of the lit, because it's like more of a lit fic. And it's kind of bittersweet at the end. And depending on what you believe in the afterlife, like it makes sense for the story for it to happen, even if I don't like it. I mean, at least it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that's a distinction to be made.
Yeah, which is I mean, that's good though, because it'd be really upsetting if Song of Achilles had a bad ending, because it's such a beautiful story. Bye, Malin.
All
Bon
right.
voyage, bitch.
And with that, we've been streaming for almost 3.5 hours, so
we made it.
Take it off. That has been the epic tale of Spreads and Shoptalk.
The end. Was this a good ending?
End of Spreads and Shoptalk. This is the last Spreads and Shoptalk ever. There will never be another one. Or maybe there'll be one in 2 weeks. We'll see.
Stay tuned. Accountability's back next week.
Yeah. Katie, would you like to drop the accountability sheet in the comments?
Yep.
You don't have to. You can just put it in the Discord. It's in the Discord in the bulletin board. If you go to the pinned comments,
I'm already there.
You guys can get the accountability sheet. There it is. There you go.
So this is
yeah, nice. Everybody,
Grayson's gonna finish their book today.
Oh yeah, and we can all cheer them on. And I wish I'd had the foresight to do that, Miranda. But instead, Stieg, do you have any final words?
I support gay rights and gay wrongs.
Yeah. Bye.
Remember. No go piss, girl.